Chapter 66. A fourth-level demonic beast was equivalent to Wu Xiu, who was at the lower 3 levels of the arterial circulation realm. This violet thunder condor was considered one of the more powerful astral beasts. Its strength was comparable to a third-level arterial circulation realm cultivator, and in addition to its ability to fly, it was extremely difficult to deal with. Above the void ancient tree, purple lightning flashed, making crackling sounds. The strands of lightning spread down along the ancient tree, and a cracking sound came out. A huge ancient tree directly exploded, and the brilliance of the lightning continued to flow. Qin Wentian and the rest inclined their heads, only to see a gigantic violet thunder condor hovering above their heads. Its baleful eyes flickered with lightning, treating the 3 of them as its prey. Chi, chi. A bolt of lightning as thick as an arm shot down from the skies, heading straight for the location where Qin Wentian and the rest were standing. The countenances of Qin Wentian and the rest froze. Their bodies were as swift as the wind, instantly retreating in 3 different directions. With a thunderous boom, the place they were standing at earlier was blasted apart, leaving behind a huge crater. The tyrannical force of the explosion blasted against their bodies, bringing with it a piercing pain. Boss, you attract the attacks. Qin Wentian's attacks were the strongest, and he was able to defend against the lightning attacks of the violet thunder condor. Good sense of brotherhood. Qin Wentian cursed in a low voice. His entire body was covered in dust, and he turned his gaze towards the skies. Abruptly, another bolt of lightning blasted down. Qin Wentian's footwork was extremely exquisite, and in an instant, his body was like a willow catkin, drifting through the air. The bolt of lightning blasted directly in front of him, yet it didn't manage to touch him in the slightest. Vile creature, come at me. This was the first time Qin Wentian executed the Garuda movement technique in a real battle, as he roared at the violet thunder condor in the skies. The violet thunder condor's eyes gleamed with a ferocious light, as it continuously spat out bolts of lightning. Fuck. Fatty was extremely loyal as he turned and fled, leaping onto an ancient tree. Qin Wentian executed the Garuda's 9 movements to the extreme, and the lightning bolts that came crashing down only grazed past his body, yet they were unable to hit him. Evil creature, continue. Qin Wentian roared in an arrogant manner. The purple thunder condor was getting angrier and angrier. While circling in the air, it let out a shrill screech and swooped down towards Qin Wentian like a bolt of lightning. Bolts of lightning struck down in a frenzy, intending to bury Qin Wentian's body within. So fierce. Fan Lu, who was on a nearby ancient tree, observed a moment of silence for Qin Wentian in his heart as he watched this scene unfold before him. The area where Qin Wentian had been buried was filled with dust, yet the violet thunder condor still refused to give up. It continued swooping down, wanting to devour Qin Wentian's flesh and blood. Amidst the dust, Qin Wentian was in an extremely sorry state. However, at this moment, a cold glint of light flashed in his eyes. At this moment, he was extremely calm, and the divine energy in his body frenziedly surged towards his arms. Rumbling sounds rang out as the revolving sea imprint, which was formed from divine energy, erupted forth. The space around him was filled with a terrifying explosion, and at this moment, Fan Li's 9 arrows shot out simultaneously, transforming into streaks of golden lightning. The purple thunder condor soared into the sky, accompanied by a shrill cry. However, the 9 arrows pierced his body with a terrifying force, and the tyrannical force made it impossible for him to fly up. Die! Yet another revolving sea imprint erupted forth, as the violet thunder condor screeched in agony. His wings flapped weakly as his body plummeted downwards, emitting a thunderous sound. The dust gradually dissipated, and Fan Lu leaped down from the tree. Upon seeing the dust-covered Qin Wentian, he couldn't help but praise, too handsome. Scram! Qin Wentian swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva, causing dust to enter his mouth. Staring at the violet thunder condor on the ground, he sighed in a depressed manner. Using yourself as bait to hunt demonic beasts is truly not an easy task. Other than using such a method, do you still have the ability to fly? Sadly, that little rascal isn't a flying-type demonic beast. Fan Lu glanced at Little Rascal who was standing beside him. Little Rascal stood up on its hind legs, glaring at Fan Lu in an extremely adorable manner. You are already very powerful. If I were to encounter a demonic beast of that level, I'm afraid I would only die. Zhao Yi walked over, feeling depressed in his heart. The disparity between them was too great. Seems like I don't even need to temper myself when I'm together with you guys. Don't worry, if we encounter any demonic beasts on the ground, I'll leave them all to you. Qin Wentian laughed. After which, he used his dagger to split open the skull of the purple thunder condor and extracted a demonic core. This palm-sized demonic core emanated a terrifying amount of lightning energy. This was the demonic core of a 4th-grade demonic beast, and to cultivators who cultivated the lightning attribute, it was extremely valuable. The demonic core of the flying-type demonic beast will belong to me, and the two of you will belong to the two of you. How about it? Qin Wentian spoke to Fan Lu and Zhao Yi. Fan Lu naturally wouldn't compete with Qin Wentian, while Zhao Yi was merely a spectator when facing off against the flying-type demonic beast. He didn't have the qualifications to compete with Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian kept the demonic core and stretched out his palms. An imprint appeared in the center of his palms, emitting a tyrannical suction force that directly imprinted itself onto the body of the violet thunder condor. Strands of white light floated into Qin Wentian's palms, transforming into the shadow of the violet thunder condor. The shadow of the violet thunder condor was absorbed into Qin Wentian's palms, before entering Qin Wentian's body. Demonic beasts have spiritual bodies, and possess demonic spirits. The cultivation art I cultivate allows me to devour demonic spirits for my cultivation, and with the assistance of the demonic core, it would be even better. Qin Wentian smiled at the two of them. It wasn't an easy task to cultivate the Garuda movement technique. What a waste of this body. If I could bring it back to the outside world, I would be able to sell it for a good price. After the three of them left, Zhao Yi cast a glance at the gigantic body of the violet thunder condor. The entire body of a powerful demonic beast was a treasure. They continued deeper into the dark forest. Whenever they encountered a demonic beast, Qin Wentian and Fan Lu would leave it to Zhao Yi to handle. They wouldn't lend a hand unless they were in dire straits. After a month, their entire bodies were covered in dirt. However, their demeanor seemed to have undergone some changes. Their eyes were sharper than before, and their strength had also improved. After much difficulty, they finally found a lake. The three of them were like hungry wolves as they dived into the lake, washing off the dirt on their bodies. After which, they set up a fire by the lakeside to dry their clothes. Bare-chested, Qin Wentian sat beneath a tree, cultivating. In his hands was a demonic core, and he unceasingly absorbed the energy within it. On his back, traces of imprints could be seen, transforming into a magnificent diagram that resembled a pair of wings. At the same time, the essence of the demonic core spread throughout his four limbs and bones. Qin Wentian could clearly feel that his body had become lighter. As he continued to absorb the essence of the demonic beasts, he discovered that the effects of the Garuda movement technique were gradually manifesting. Woo-woo. At this moment, Qin Wentian saw Little Rascal sprinting over from afar, circling around Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened as he asked, "You want me to go with you?" Upon hearing that, Little Rascal turned and sped away. Upon seeing this, a strange light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes as he commanded, "Fatty, Zhao Yi, let's move out." After speaking, he draped his clothes over his shoulders and followed after Little Rascal. Fan Lu and Zhao Yi had their hearts filled with suspicion, but they still followed after them. Little Rascal's speed got faster and faster. Qin Wentian and the rest started to run, and soon after, they discovered that Little Rascal had brought them to a valley. The terrain here was extremely steep, and there were many rarely seen trees. "There's someone fighting." Qin Wentian and Fan Lu exchanged glances. Little Rascal brought them up a slope, and when they arrived at the top, their gazes fell onto the valley below. The pupils of Qin Wentian and the rest involuntarily narrowed. Azure Qilin Python. At the bottom of the slope, there were actually many gigantic python demons. Qin Wentian had once encountered these Azure Qilin pythons in the dark forest. The strength of these Azure Qilin pythons was extremely terrifying. Especially one of the gigantic pythons that was coiled around a strange ancient tree. Its head was tilted upwards as it spat out poisonous mist. Many wounds could be seen on its gigantic body. At this moment, there was a group of people fighting against the Azure Qilin pythons. People from the Emperor's Star Academy. Zhao Yi's countenance was filled with shock when he saw these people. The majority of these wuxiu's cultivation bases were at the 3rd or 4th level of arterial circulation, and their ages were around 17 to 18 years old. All of them released their astral souls, indicating that they were all stellar martial cultivators. Are you acquainted with them? Qin Wentian asked Zhao Yi, who was standing beside him. That person's name is Logan, a student of the Emperor's Star Academy. I've seen him before. Zhao Yi pointed to one of them as he spoke. The aura emitted by that person was at the peak of the 4th level of arterial circulation. They're fighting over the fruits on that ancient tree. Fan Li's eyes narrowed as he stared at the tree guarded by the largest Azure Qilin python. There were several vermilion fruits on the tree, so red that it looked as though they were about to drip blood. Strange flowers and fruits would definitely be guarded by demonic beasts. Seems like the saying is true. What fruit is this? Qin Wentian asked Fan Lo, as he unconsciously glanced at Little Rascal. Little Rascal actually knew to bring them here. Blood Ember Fruit. This kind of fruit has a miraculous effect on wuxiu at the arterial circulation realm. It's able to help arterial circulation realm cultivators break through to the next level. Not only that, it can also be used by an alchemist to concoct a blood ember pill, which would have an even stronger effect. Fan Lu explained in a low voice, causing a fiery light to flash in Qin Wentian's eyes. At the arterial circulation realm, one had to constantly use astral energy to temper their arterial circulation pathways, stimulating their arterial circulation acupoints, causing their arterial circulation pathways to expand unceasingly, allowing the body to store more astral energy, allowing the circulation of astral energy to become smoother. This blood ember fruit could aid arterial circulation realm cultivators in breaking through to the next level. No wonder these people were so crazy about it. However, Logan and the rest were currently in a disadvantageous position. Blood ember fruit. A fiery light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes as he stared at the vermilion fruit. Currently, he desperately needed to raise his strength. There were too many things waiting for him to do. Chapter 67. Logan was currently fighting against the Azure Qilin python that was guarding the blood ember fruit tree. He similarly saw Qin Wentian and the rest on the hillside, and involuntarily shouted, "Brothers from the Emperor's Star Academy, please help us out. This Azure Qilin python is extremely difficult to deal with." Qin Wentian had caused such a huge commotion in the Emperor's Star Academy, and there were many who knew of him. That day when you fought against Murong Feng, Logan had personally witnessed it. He knew that Qin Wentian's combat prowess was extremely tyrannical. Should we act? Zhao Yi was itching to give it a try. At this moment, the situation was very clear. Although the students of the Emperor's Star Academy were at a disadvantage, they wouldn't be defeated in a short period of time. Logan was fighting alone against the Azure Qilin python, and his chances of victory were extremely slim. Although the Azure Qilin python was heavily injured, Logan's body was riddled with wounds as well. If the battle continued on like this, the entire situation would collapse sooner or later. Only Logan would be able to temporarily suppress the Azure Qilin python. The most important thing is that Azure Qilin python. As long as we deal with it, it would be equivalent to releasing Logan. After that, we can slowly deal with the other Azure Qilin pythons. Fan Le stated in a low voice. Qin Wentian's eyes flickered. If they were to help Logan deal with the Azure Qilin python, they might not even get a share of the spoils of war. The human heart was hard to fathom, especially when the blood ember fruit was involved. With regards to this point, Qin Wentian had long since experienced it firsthand. "Little rascal, come over here." Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. An instant later, a phantom rushed into his body. After which, Qin Wentian whispered a few words into Little Rascal's ears. After which, Little Rascal leaped off his body and left. Xiao Yi. Qin Wentian stared at Xiao Yi. "What's the matter?" Xiao Yi asked. "You should temporarily leave this place. Staying here might be dangerous," Qin Wentian stated, causing Xiao Yi's countenance to stiffen. A treasure like the blood ember fruit was right in front of him, and now that Qin Wentian wanted him to leave, it was hard for him not to have any thoughts. "If you fall out with Logan, we won't be able to take care of you," Qin Wentian explained. However, Xiao Yi's expression was still very stiff and ugly. He didn't say anything and just turned to leave, as if he was very unhappy. Seeing this scene, Qin Wentian silently shook his head. Not everyone was as carefree as Xiao Yi. He and Xiao Yi had already interacted for so many days, and he had thought that they already had a tacit understanding of each other. But now, it seemed that he had been thinking too much. After all, Xiao Yi's strength was weak. Whether it was against the Azure Scale Python or Logan Bow, he didn't have the strength to resist. If he stayed here, it would be very difficult for them to take care of him. For the sake of safety, Qin Wentian allowed him to temporarily leave. However, Xiao Yi's expression instantly changed. Naturally, Qin Wentian didn't bother to explain what he wanted to say to him. "They won't be able to hold on much longer." Fan Lu spoke in a low voice, drawing Qin Wentian's attention back to the present. He saw that Logan was already fighting against the Azure Kirin Python, and was completely suppressed. The students of the Emperor Star Academy were all in a life-threatening situation. "Friend, if we die, you won't be able to defend against these Azure Scale Pythons. If we join forces, we might still have a chance. At that time, we can split the spoils of war together." Logan roared to Qin Wentian and Fan Lu. In such a dangerous situation, Qin Wentian's participation would definitely be of great help. Qin Wentian also understood Logan's words. If they died, he and Fan Lu wouldn't be able to snatch the blood ember fruits away. "Fatty, leave some trump cards behind." Qin Wentian abruptly dashed out, dashing towards the direction of Logan. At the instant he dashed out, Qin Wentian released his archery astral soul. Resplendent arrows instantly shot out in all directions. Long-range archers were proficient in control. A truly powerful archer could kill enemies 1,000 miles away without leaving a single trace. Although Fan Li's arrows weren't strong enough to deal damage to the Azure Scale Pythons, the angles of his arrows were extremely crafty, aiming for the eyes of the Azure Scale Pythons. In the blink of an eye, he was able to control the flow of the battle, preventing them from being defeated so quickly. Qin Wentian's silhouette had already reached the 5th level Azure Scale Python. The strength of this Azure Scale Python was comparable to Wu Xiu, who was at the 5th level of arterial circulation. Upon seeing Qin Wentian rushing over, the Azure Scale Python directly spat out a mouthful of poisonous mist. Qin Wentian held his breath, only to see the Azure Scale Python's gigantic tail sweeping towards him. Boom! Qin Wentian stomped on the ground, his silhouette turning illusory as the gigantic tail swept past him. Twisting his body, Qin Wentian continued dashing towards the Azure Scale Python. Boom! A diamond imprint directly slammed into the abdomen of the Azure Scale Python, causing it to howl in rage. Lowering its head, it ferociously lunged towards Qin Wentian. 3 resplendent arrows pierced through the air, piercing towards the eyes of the Azure Scale Python. At the same time, Logan's great axe astral soul blossomed with a resplendent light. A divine axe appeared in his hands as he abruptly leapt up, aiming for the vital point of the Azure Scale Python. Qin Wentian's footsteps trembled as he stared at the gigantic mouth of the azure scale python. His body was as light as a swallow, and the Garuda imprint condensed on his back began to float. His entire person transformed into a blur as he retreated towards the abdomen of the azure scale python. Earlier, in that instant, Qin Wentian felt that his movement technique had reached the pinnacle of perfection. He felt an intense sense of control over his movements. This was the level of subtlety. Die! Qin Wentian howled in rage. The revolving sea imprint released a terrifying might, directly slamming into the head of the azure scale python. At the same time, Qin Wentian's arrow directly pierced into its eye. Logan leapt onto the back of the azure scale python. With a howl of rage, he chopped downwards with his great axe. A resplendent azure light flashed as the axe forcefully penetrated the vital point of the azure scale python. The gigantic body of the azure scale python trembled violently as it struggled madly. Very quickly, it collapsed onto the ground, completely dead. Who? Logan drew in a deep breath, as he smiled at Qin Wentian. Many thanks. Let's kill the other azure scale pythons first. Qin Wentian nodded his head. With the death of the strongest 5th level azure scale python, the other azure scale pythons were no longer a threat. Qin Wentian, Logan and Fan Lu joined the fray, and very quickly, the remaining azure scale pythons were wiped out. Ha! Logan laughed uproariously, as he stared at Qin Wentian. As expected of the #1 student of the Emperor's Star Academy. Qin Wentian, this time around, it's all thanks to you. If not for you, I'm afraid we would have been in deep trouble. Deep trouble? Looking at the carefree smile on Logan's face, Qin Wentian's brows twitched, as traces of sharpness could be seen in his eyes. However, the smile on his face didn't fade. Him now was no longer the simple and honest youth he once was. Qin Wentian, the demonic cores of these azure scale pythons are extremely valuable. I've made the decision to gift them all to you. Logan exclaimed in a heroic manner. However, his words were extremely piercing to the ears of Qin Wentian and Fan Lu. Gift them to him. If it weren't for him and Fan Lu, not to mention killing these azure scale pythons, even Logan and the rest would have been in mortal danger. Although Qin Wentian didn't claim credit for it, saying that it was all his effort, after all, the two of them had joined forces. However, Logan's words were extremely piercing to the ears. I'm not really interested in these demonic cores. I'll give them to you. Qin Wentian laughed as he replied, his words causing Logan's eyes to narrow as a cold light flickered within. After all, you guys have helped us out a little. If you don't want anything in return, it would be too polite of you. Why don't I give you another blood ember fruit? Logan laughed, as he walked towards the direction of the blood ember fruit tree. The people behind him followed suit, completely disregarding Qin Wentian. 7 people, 1 at the 4th level of arterial circulation, and 6 at the 3rd level. Seems like things are going to be a little troublesome. Qin Wentian watched as these people walked past him. Slowly, he turned his body as he spoke, wait a minute. Logan and the rest turned back, as they stared at Qin Wentian, is there anything else? Earlier, we saved your lives. This blood ember fruit should be distributed among us. Qin Wentian indifferently replied. Is that so? A cold glint of light flashed in Logan's eyes as he cast a glance at his surroundings. When his gaze landed on Qin Wentian once again, a cold smile could be seen flickering in his eyes. Since this is the case, we will have to thank you for your life-saving grace. As the sound of his voice faded, the crowd surrounded Qin Wentian. Although Qin Wentian was highly regarded by the Emperor's Star Academy, this place was the Dark Forest. The eyes of the Emperor's Star Academy wouldn't be able to see so far away. If 2 corpses were to appear here, they would be snatched away by demonic beasts. Nobody would even know how they died. The killing intent in Logan's eyes was no longer concealed. For the sake of the blood ember fruits, several of their comrades had died. Now that there were only 7 of them left, they were already extremely nervous. Logan felt that giving a blood ember fruit to Qin Wentian was already considered polite enough. However, there were some people who refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Since this was the case, it would naturally be better if there were fewer people sharing the fruits. That should be the case. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, he abruptly stepped forward, transforming into a blur of shadows. Earlier, when he dodged the attack of the Azure Kirin Python, his Garuda movement technique had already stepped into the second level of the arterial circulation manual, the exquisite level. Puchi. A crisp sound rang out as Qin Wentian's body came into contact with a cultivator at the third level of arterial circulation. This sudden scene caused the crowd to be stunned. When Qin Wentian retreated back to his original location, the crowd could only see a palm imprint on the chest of the cultivator whom Qin Wentian had come into contact with. That palm imprint had directly destroyed his heart. Cultivation isn't easy, and there are so many blood ember fruits here. Why can't we just divide them properly? Why must things be like this? Qin Wentian released his astral souls, as killing intent flashed in his eyes. Chapter 68. Seeing the speed of Qin Wentian, the countenances of Logan and the rest froze. After which, Logan spoke to a skinny and tall youth clad in green robes, "You will be the main controller." That person nodded his head as he released one of his astral souls. It was actually a tree-type astral soul, with many vines growing out of it. At the same time, the astral energy in his hands transformed into numerous vines that coiled around his body. This astral soul was evidently a control-type astral soul, and could be used to deal with the extremely fast Wuxiu. "The two of you, go and kill that fatty," Logan commanded. Qin Wentian's status in the Emperor Star Academy was extraordinary. If they wanted to kill Qin Wentian, they had to kill Fan Lu as well. They must not leave any loose ends behind. The two of them nodded their heads, as they dashed towards Fan Lu. Upon seeing this scene, Fan Lu immediately turned and fled. His cultivation base was at the second level of arterial circulation, and his opponent's cultivation base was higher than his. Since he was proficient in long-range attacks, he naturally wouldn't engage in close-range combat with his opponents. Logan and the other three surrounded Qin Wentian, no longer concealing their killing intent. Killing a genius student is nothing more than that. Although he's also at the fourth level of arterial circulation, Murong Feng is still too tender. Logan coldly stated. His great axe astral soul exuded a terrifying sharpness. "Do it," Logan commanded. Momentarily, the tree-type astral soul expert's palms trembled, as the vines shot towards Qin Wentian. Logan took a huge step forward, as an axe light slashed downwards, wanting to cleave Qin Wentian into two. Qin Wentian's footsteps trembled, as his entire person transformed into a blur, evading the axe light and the vines as he floated to the side. Chi! A beam of sword light slashed over. A young man wielding a sword moved with the speed of the wind. At the same time, the fourth person also acted. He punched out with his fist, causing numerous demonic bulls to howl as they lunged towards Qin Wentian. In that short instant, Qin Wentian was surrounded. He executed the Garuda movement technique to the extreme, and dodged 3 attacks consecutively. His movements were so graceful that it caused people to sigh in admiration. However, the demonic ox was incomparably ferocious, and the area it covered was extremely large. He could only send out a palm strike, and the explosive power of the Vajra imprint shattered the demonic ox's shadow. That instant of delay was more than enough for the great axe and sharp sword to reach him. A terrifying sense of impending danger gushed forth. At this moment, Qin Wentian was extremely calm. It was as though he could hear every single sound of the wind blowing past him. Just as the divine weapon axe was about to cleave his head apart, Murong Feng's body was akin to a specter as he retreated backwards. The axe slashed past his body, yet the startling wind sword continued to slash through the air, lacerating his skin as drops of blood flowed out. The strength of the encirclement of the four of them was far from what Murong Feng could compare to. It was incomparably dangerous. Puchi. A light sound rang out, as a sharp sword pierced into Qin Wentian's body. However, at the same instant, a white light flashed from Qin Wentian's palm, as the throat of the sword-wielding youth was pierced through by a dagger. He immediately abandoned his sword, and clutched his throat with both hands. However, this was already too late to save his life. Qin Wentian didn't even have the time to watch his death. He directly rushed out from the hole in the wall, his eyes cold to the extreme. The dagger had always been hidden on his body, and the moment he made his move, it was already a sure kill move. His speed was extremely fast, and Logan and the rest seemed to have forgotten to chase after him. They could only watch as their comrade clutched his throat with both hands, as his body was dyed red with fresh blood. This was already the second person who had died in Qin Wentian's hands. At the start of the battle, Qin Wentian had caught them off guard and instantly killed one of them. This time around, it was yet another sure kill move. The remaining three stared at Qin Wentian, their gazes as cold as venomous snakes. Fresh blood could be seen on Qin Wentian's chest. That earlier sword strike had clearly injured him, and if it weren't for his sure kill move, his injuries would have been even more severe. Fascinating. At this moment, an unfamiliar voice drifted over. Qin Wentian, Logan, and the rest froze as they turned their gazes in the direction of the voice. Only to see Fan Lu running back in a sorry state, his aura fluctuating unsteadily. Traces of blood could be seen at the corner of his mouth, and the sleeves of his sleeves were torn apart. Evidently, he had already revealed the existence of this divine weapon, but he was still injured. We've been betrayed. Fan Lu spat out a mouthful of blood-colored saliva as he walked towards Qin Wentian. After which, a few more people appeared on the hillside. The two who had chased after Fan Lu, as well as two others. One of them was a skinny man with a long face and cold eyes, giving off a sinister aura. At this moment, a cold smile could be seen on his face, and the words "fascinating" earlier were spoken by him. Beside him stood another person, causing Qin Wentian's eyes to widen in surprise. Zhao Yi. Qin Wentian called out. Zhao Yi's gaze shifted in his direction as he unhappily stated, "Don't blame me, you were the one who was heartless first. If you had stayed behind earlier, I'm afraid you would already be a dead man by now." Qin Wentian calmly continued, "I only wanted you to leave first. If we managed to obtain the blood ember fruits, I would naturally share them with you." "Who would have thought? You can say whatever you want now." Zhao Yi coldly stated. "Why are you wasting your breath on this kind of person? We brought him along to temper ourselves in the dark forest, and we even shared half of the demonic cores with him. Look at what happened now." Fan Lu coldly stated. Qin Wentian shook his head, he couldn't be bothered to say anything more. There was no need to explain things to this kind of person. Hee. The person beside Zhao Yi coldly laughed. "Logan, young Lord Luo is in the vicinity. I've already sent someone to inform him, you can do as you see fit." Luo Qinqiu. Logan's countenance stiffened as he cast a cold glance at Zhao Yi. This bastard, he actually brought Luo Qianqiu's lackey Franklin here. Since Luo Qianqiu already knew about the matter of the blood ember fruits, everything was already set in stone. He could only fight for himself. "Franklin, I'm willing to give the blood ember fruits to young Lord Luo. However, many of my brothers died. Can you leave one for each of us?" Logan asked. "There are only a few blood ember fruits left. Do you want young Lord Luo to leave all of them for you?" Franklin pointed to the blood ember fruit tree in the distance. Logan shifted his gaze in that direction, and both his legs trembled. It was as though he had just seen something inconceivable. His countenance instantly turned extremely ugly to behold. "Franklin, there's still someone else here." Logan's countenance was unsightly to behold. There were only a few fruits left on the blood ember fruit tree. Evidently, someone had stolen them. But how could this be possible? Although they were fighting, How could they not have sensed that someone had stolen the fruits? How could the thief's movements be so light? I don't care if there's still someone else here. Do you still want these blood ember fruits? Franklin aggressively stated. Logan's countenance turned ugly as he silently cursed in his heart. If it wasn't for the fact that Franklin was Luo Qianqiu's lackey, he wouldn't even care about this bastard. But now, his life was more important. He had indeed heard that Luo Qianqiu was also tempering himself in the dark forest. Luo Qianqiu was an existence that he didn't dare to antagonize. I'm willing to give them all to young Master Luo. Logan spoke, causing Franklin to smile in satisfaction. Qin Wentian and Fan Le had been standing at the side, watching. Upon hearing that Logan was willing to give the blood ember fruits to young Master Luo, their countenances couldn't help but turn somewhat strange. It seems that you should discuss this with me first. Qin Wentian indifferently stated. Instantly, the gazes of Logan and Franklin shifted onto Qin Wentian. Logan silently cursed at this fellow for not knowing the immensity of death, while a smile appeared on Franklin's face. He's also a student of the Emperor Star Academy. Franklin had always followed Luo Qianqiu in tempering himself in the dark forest. It had already been half a year since he returned. He's the top student of the Emperor Star Academy, Qin Wentian. Logan stated to Franklin. I see. Franklin rubbed his chin as he stared at Qin Wentian. Since you're a new student, you should learn to respect your seniors. Are you going to give me these blood ember fruits? Fine, I'll give them all to you. Qin Wentian waved his hands as he glanced at Fan Le. The two of them then turned and departed. This scene caused Logan to be stunned. Since when did this fellow become so easy to talk to? However, at this moment, a snowy white hound slowly crawled its way to the blood ember fruit tree. In an instant, it leapt up the tree and stretched out its furry paws to pluck a blood ember fruit. After that, it peeked its head out and cast a glance at Logan. Its eyes blinked a few times, as though it was depressed that it had been discovered. So it was done by this beast. A cold glint of light flashed in Logan's eyes. That's Qin Wentian's pet. Zhao Yi's countenance stiffened as he stared at the snowy white hound. Little rascal, eat the remaining fruits yourself. Qin Wentian's voice drifted over from afar. Upon hearing that, little rascal directly tossed the blood ember fruit in its paw into its mouth. After which, its body abruptly expanded in size as it dashed towards the other blood ember fruits. In the blink of an eye, more and more blood ember fruits entered its mouth. Quick, stop him. Franklin's countenance abruptly changed, as he hurriedly dashed towards the blood ember fruit tree. However, even before they arrived, the fruits on the blood ember fruit tree had already been devoured. Little rascal transformed into a blur as he dashed down the hill. When Franklin and Logan finally caught up to him, they discovered that little rascal was still chewing on a sack in his mouth. Naturally, the contents of the sack were the other blood ember fruits. Vile beast. Bastard. Franklin and Logan roared as they madly chased after little rascal. However, little rascal's speed was simply too fast. It transformed into a white blur as it dashed into the depths of the forest. From afar, Qin Wentian and Fatty both had radiant smiles on their faces. That little rascal should have eaten his fill earlier, right? Chapter 69. 2 hours later, in the same secluded mountain valley, a few silhouettes stood there. The person in the lead seemed to be around 17 years of age. His countenance was calm, yet he gave off the impression of a towering mountain. It was as though as long as he was there, the others would lose their splendor, and could only serve as his background. Logan and the rest stood at the foot of the mountain, their expressions extremely reserved. Evidently, they had failed to catch up to Little Rascal. Little Rascal dashed in all directions, and they had no way to catch up. Very quickly, they were shaken off. By the time they returned, Qin Wentian and Fan Le had already slipped away, only to see Luo Qianqiu and the rest standing there. Where are the blood ember fruits? Luo Qianqiu's voice was calm, devoid of any emotions. But with just a casual question, Logan's entire body tensed up as he respectfully replied, "Young Master Luo, Qin Wentian is too cunning. He personally delayed us, but he allowed his demonic beast to steal away the blood ember fruits that I was preparing to present to young Master Luo." Franklin walked to Luo Qianqiu's side, and spoke a few words to him. Luo Qianqiu's countenance didn't change in the slightest. Number one amongst the new students, Qin Wentian. He, Luo Qianqiu, had no interest whatsoever. "Go and find him," Luo Qianqiu coldly commanded. Logan felt as though he had just been pardoned from a grave crime. He bowed and replied, "Logan will definitely do his best." As he spoke, he led the group of people behind him in the direction that Qin Wentian had left. "This mountain valley is extremely secretive. Let's go and search for other treasures," Luo Qianqiu commanded. The silhouettes of the people behind him flickered as they dispersed in all directions. It was as though Luo Qianqiu's every word and action was an imperial edict. Very quickly, only Franklin and Zhao Yi remained by Luo Qianqiu's side. Zhao Yi, a new student of the Emperor Star Academy, is willing to follow beside young Master Luo from now on. Zhao Yi bowed to Luo Qianqiu. He was very clear of Luo Qianqiu's status in the Emperor Star Academy. The Heavens Chosen, Luo Qianqiu, in his first year in the Emperor Star Academy, not only did he obtain first place amongst the new students, he even swept aside all the second-year students. In the second year, he joined the Azura Alliance and became one of the leaders. Luo Qianqiu's talent was exceedingly high, and the cultivation techniques and innate techniques he cultivated were all terrifying. Not only that, it was rumored that he had an extraordinary background, and very few people dared to provoke him. Other than his innate talent, he was also extremely hardworking in his cultivation. Every day, he would engage in a life-and-death battle with a senior from the Azura Alliance in the Dream Sky Forest. Those who were cruel to themselves would undoubtedly be cruel to their enemies. "You betrayed your friends. You don't even qualify to be my dog. Scram!" Luo Qianqiu coldly spat out, causing Zhao Yi's countenance to turn pale, his countenance extremely ugly to behold. He had already betrayed Qin Wentian, wanting to obtain a portion of the blood ember fruits from Feng Lin, yet the blood ember fruits were still snatched away by Qin Wentian. And at this moment, he was being humiliated by Luo Qianqiu. This caused Zhao Yi's face to contort as he silently turned around and left. "Young Master Luo, should we get rid of him?" Feng Lin whispered to Luo Qianqiu. Since this Zhao Yi was able to betray Qin Wentian, he would definitely harbor a grudge against them. "Why not just kill him?" "No need," Luo Qianqiu calmly replied, as he walked towards the hidden ravine. What sort of character was he, Luo Qianqiu? He couldn't even be bothered with a minor character like Zhao Yi. After all, he had his own pride. Qin Wentian and Fan Lu returned to the lakeside. After waiting for a few moments, they saw Little Rascal rushing over with a pouch in its mouth, stopping beside Qin Wentian. "Good fellow." Qin Wentian opened the pouch, and as expected, 10 blood ember fruits could be seen within. He couldn't help but rub Little Rascal's head gently. Little Rascal's body had once again shrunk back to its original size. Wagging its tail, it rubbed its head against Qin Wentian's thigh, as though it was asking for credit. "Little Rascal, the blood ember fruits you ate have already been digested. Aren't you a little too wasteful?" Fan Lu walked over and slapped Little Rascal's head. Little Rascal turned around and squatted on the ground, glaring at Fan Lu. That pair of beady eyes were filled with disdain, causing Fan Lu to roll his eyes. Who would have thought that this fellow could actually hunt for treasures? A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he shared the blood ember fruits with Little Rascal. After which, they departed the area. He and Little Rascal had agreed to meet at this location, but Zhao Yi also knew of this location. In order to prevent others from finding their way here, it was better to first find a place to consume the blood ember fruits and see if there was any chance for him to break through to the third level of arterial circulation. Qin Wentian and Fan Le had already broken through to the second level of arterial circulation a few days ago, and after experiencing the energy of the dark forest, Fan Li's cultivation base had already broken through to the third level of arterial circulation after consuming 3 blood ember fruits consecutively. This caused Qin Wentian to be speechless. As for Qin Wentian, after consuming the 2 blood ember fruits, he continued to temper himself in the dark forest. Naturally, he didn't forget to cultivate, and finally, after 10 days, he broke through to the third level of arterial circulation. The astral energy in his body flowed more smoothly than before, and it was as though his entire person had undergone another transformation. This feeling of breaking through was extremely wonderful. As for the remaining 3 blood ember fruits, Qin Wentian wasn't in a hurry to consume them. Treasures like these were extremely rare, and if it weren't for little rascal leading the way, they would definitely not have been able to find the valley. Not only that, there were many people who came to the dark forest to temper themselves, and they could already be considered extremely lucky to have stumbled upon it. These 3 blood ember fruits should be saved for their next breakthrough. They also weren't in a hurry to leave the dark forest. Now that their strength had improved, Qin Wentian and Fan Le were even more proficient in hunting and killing 4th-level demonic beasts. Flying beasts belonged to Qin Wentian, while land beasts belonged to Fan Le. In the blink of an eye, another month passed by. Fallen leaves fluttered about the dark forest, creating a beautiful scene of autumn. Within the dark forest, one could often see 2 muscular silhouettes carrying a snow-white puppy as they dashed about, hunting demonic beasts. The demonic beasts in this area would flee whenever they saw the 2 of them, treating them as devils. Qin Wentian's Garuda movement technique of the 9 heavenly layers was getting more and more proficient, and the Garuda imprint on his back was faintly discernible. Even his entire demeanor seemed to have undergone a slight transformation. Perhaps it was because he had swallowed too many demonic beasts, but Qin Wentian's entire person exuded a sense of demonic handsomeness. His pair of bright eyes were as beautiful as a demon, and even though his entire body was covered in dirt, it was unable to conceal the vitality radiating from his eyes. Both he and Fan Le had grown taller. "Fatty, your figure is getting better and better." At this moment, Qin Wentian took out a dagger he had picked up and skillfully split open the head of a demonic beast, retrieving the demonic core from within as he smiled at Fatty. During these few days, Fan Li's fat body had indeed lost a lot of weight. "I'm a man who wants to woo my goddess, of course I have to become more handsome." Fan Le grinned. "Boss, you still have some blood ember fruits on you that you haven't used yet, right? Do you want to share some with me?" "Scram, you've already eaten your own fruits and you still want to take advantage of me? You must be dreaming." Qin Wentian cast a disdainful glance at Fatty. This Fatty wanted to break through to the 4th level of arterial circulation in a single go, and he had already eaten the remaining 2 blood ember fruits. However, his cultivation base was still stuck at the peak of the 3rd level. "How disloyal." Fan Le mumbled as he stood up and left. At this moment, a cry for help drifted over. Qin Wentian and Fan Li's silhouettes flickered, and an instant later, they saw a group of people chasing after an extremely disheveled silhouette. "Zhao Yi." An expression of interest appeared on Fan Li's face as he stared at the person being chased. Zhao Yi halted his steps, and upon seeing Qin Wentian and Fan Le, a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes as he shouted, "Qin Wentian, Fan Le, save me, they want to kill me." The group of people rushed forward and surrounded Zhao Yi, only to see one of them glancing at Qin Wentian and Fan Le as he stated, "Friend, this man took the opportunity to steal the demonic cores we placed at the side while we were fighting against the demonic beasts. It's best if you don't interfere." "They're lying, the demonic cores were stolen by them." Zhao Yi's countenance drastically changed, as he stared at Qin Wentian and Fan Le. This was his only chance. "For a person like you, I'm already being polite if I don't personally slaughter you," Fan Le coldly stated. Back then, Zhao Yi, who was originally their comrade, had actually brought people to deal with them, placing them in a dangerous situation. Back then, Zhao Yi had no qualms about it at all. Zhao Yi's countenance stiffened, as he stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, we're comrades, save me. Sincerity, you can only give it once. Once you miss it, there won't be a second chance. Qin Wentian softly replied, as he prepared to depart. They have blood ember fruits on them. Zhao Yi suddenly pointed at Qin Wentian and Fan Lu as he howled in rage, yes, and not just one. They snatched over 10 blood ember fruits from a blood ember fruit tree. Qin Wentian and Fan Lu halted their steps. At this moment, Zhao Yi's countenance was contorted in agony as he stared at Qin Wentian and Fan Lu. It was precisely the two of them who had caused him to be in such a miserable state. Ha, how lively! A voice drifted over from afar, as a group of silhouettes sprinted over. There were a total of 6 of them, and they were none other than Logan and the rest. Qin Wentian, you still have so many blood ember fruits with you, right? Logan's eyes flashed with coldness. At the same time, the other group of people stared at Qin Wentian and Fan Lu with greed in their eyes. Qin Wentian suddenly recalled a saying that had circulated around the dark forest. The most dangerous thing wasn't the demonic beasts, but the human heart. This saying was something that Qin Wentian had heard when he was chatting with a group of adventurers. Qin Wentian, Fan Lu, prepare to die. Zhao Yi's face contorted in a malevolent manner. However, in the next instant, Qin Wentian's silhouette transformed into a blur. Zhao Yi's eyes narrowed as he retreated. A stream of blood flashed past, and Zhao Yi's throat was sliced open by the dagger. His hands clutched at his throat, as terror and despair could be seen in his eyes. Staring at Qin Wentian, he knelt down, before slumping to the ground. The terror in his eyes was still there. He had never imagined that his young life would end in such a manner. In his mind, many scenes flashed past. How young he was, how he had entered the Emperor's Star Academy, how high-spirited he was, how he had invited Qin Wentian and Fan Lu to enter the dark forest together. Qin Wentian and Fan Lu had brought him along to hunt demonic beasts, causing his strength to rise unceasingly. That feeling of excitement had filled him with hope for the future. But all of this changed with the appearance of the blood ember fruits. His life had come to an end. Chapter 70. The dagger in Qin Wentian's hand was still dripping with blood. He was extremely calm, and this calmness actually caused Logan to feel a sense of danger. Brandishing his divine axe, Logan released his astral soul. His astral soul seemed to have fused together with the divine weapon in his hands, exuding a tyrannical sharpness. Previously, Qin Wentian had already given him quite a bit of pressure. This time around, it was better to be more careful. The people around him all released their astral souls, as they prepared for battle. Fan Lu stealthily increased the distance between them, as he activated his archery astral soul. Qin Wentian casually kept the dagger in his hand, as he pulled out a pair of gloves. The silvery glove reflected a resplendent light, causing it to be exceptionally dazzling to the eyes. This was a divine weapon that Qin Wentian had forged for himself. Slowly donning the gloves, the young man was still as calm and tranquil as ever. Be careful. Logan spoke to his companions, while Qin Wentian casually turned around, staring at the group of people who had been chasing after Zhao Yi earlier. He smiled at them, causing their countenances to flicker with a strange light. This devilishly handsome young man was so calm that it caused them to feel a trace of fear. That smile of his was clean and gentle, yet it contained a trace of calmness that didn't match his age. Abruptly, numerous vines extended towards Qin Wentian, wrapping around Qin Wentian's body, before violently pulling him back. When Logan and the others saw this scene, their killing intent erupted. They took a step forward and at the same time, 9 arrows descended from the skies, shooting towards Logan and the others. Logan raised his great axe and abruptly chopped down with an incomparably tyrannical momentum, as though it could split apart a mountain. At the same time, the expert with the ancient tree astral soul pulled Qin Wentian towards him. A cold glint of light flashed in his eyes, as a sharp wooden blade pierced towards Qin Wentian's heart. Qin Wentian's silhouette floated along the vines towards him. His silhouette was like a phantom, and there were hints of blurriness to it. This caused the eyes of the expert to narrow, as the vines around Qin Wentian loosened. Qin Wentian was borrowing the power of the vines to get closer to him. Roar! With a dragon's roar, the dragon's subduing fist blasted out, shattering the wooden blade into pieces. A silver-colored dragon claw flickered in the air, and instantly, the throat of the expert with the ancient tree astral soul was filled with blood. Third level of arterial circulation. Logan's expression was ashen. Arrows were madly shooting towards him. He had no time to deal with anything else. After Qin Wentian killed one of them, the other four simultaneously launched their attacks. However, Qin Wentian abruptly stomped his foot on the ground, causing the earth to tremble. Boundless divine energy gushed forth from his 3 stellar meridians, gushing forth from his palms. Not only that, this divine energy was amplified by the divine gloves. The attacks of the Qin Wentian's right, and instantly. With the power. And, as, he, dragon. Qin was the sea, and landed. As. Said. The. Rumble. The terrifying revolving sea imprint slammed into their bodies, instantly annihilating the 4 of them. Fan Lu didn't continue shooting, but Logan's heart was pounding. Seeing Qin Wentian rushing towards him, a look of terror flashed past his eyes. Retreat means death. Logan howled in rage, as he cleaved out with his great axe, as though he wanted to split the heavens and earth apart, destroying everything. Qin Wentian didn't dodge. Clad in the silver glove, he blasted out another revolving sea imprint, causing the great axe to be flung away. After which, Qin Wentian's palms grabbed onto Logan's throat, as he continued to rush forward. Kacha! Logan, who was being held by Qin Wentian, was forced to retreat. His body slammed into a huge tree, causing it to split apart. Logan's blood and chi churned wildly, as his countenance turned pale. Don't kill me. As the sound of Logan's voice faded, the silver glove slashed across his throat. Instantly, his eyes widened, as only despair could be seen in them. Clutching his throat with both hands, his body slumped to the ground. Who? Those who were chasing after Zhao Yi felt their bodies tense up. The relaxed smiles on their faces vanished, replaced with a heavy expression as they stared warily at the young man who had just turned around. Evidently, they didn't expect that the seemingly calm and peaceful young man would be so tyrannical and ruthless when he acted, showing no mercy at all. Let's go. Qin Wentian smiled at Fan Lu before departing the area. Fan Lu quickened his pace, and only then did the pursuers heave a sigh of relief. One of the pursuers stared at the back view of Qin Wentian and Fan Lu, as an unconcealable ripple of emotion flashed through his eyes. In the future, when we meet with this person, show him some respect. Do not antagonize him. That person spoke, as the others nodded their heads in agreement. They had been adventuring in the dark forest for many years, and were already used to killing. But when they saw how calm that young man was when he killed Zhao Yi, they couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. If he doesn't die, in the future, this young man will definitely become someone great. Another person murmured. Qin Wentian and Fan Lu strolled through the forest. Fan Li's gaze was fixed on Qin Wentian, as a strange light flickered in his eyes. What are you looking at? Are you jealous that I'm more handsome than you? Qin Wentian laughed as he stared at Fan Lu. Fan Lu shook his head. Compared to the first time I met you, you seem to have changed quite a bit. The you back then, always had worries in your heart. Although you were ruthless to your enemies, you weren't as calm and decisive as you are now. People are always changing. Qin Wentian laughed. Aren't you the same? You even know how to put on a serious face now. Fan Lu clasped his hands behind his head as he tilted his head upwards, a smile appearing on his face. That's right, humans will always change, becoming more and more suitable to live in this world. But one day, will we be able to return to our original selves? In front of my brothers, I will always be the original me, no matter what the future holds. Qin Wentian stared at Fan Lu. Although there was dust on his face, in Fan Li's eyes, Qin Wentian's face was exceptionally clean. Especially that radiant smile of his, it caused people to feel a sense of comfort in their hearts. Yes, our brotherhood will never change in this lifetime. Fan Lu gazed into the horizons. He could still vaguely remember the scene when they first met. It was very ordinary, there was nothing spectacular about it. However, sometimes, the feelings between men were just so simple, there was no reason for it. Autumn clothes gradually grew thicker, as the colorful fallen leaves formed a beautiful yet desolate path in the forest. Following that ancient path, two youths slowly walked out. They inclined their heads and stared at the ancient town in front of them, as a pure smile could be seen on their faces. Ha! Which academy did this brat come from? His luck isn't bad, he managed to walk out alive. A few adventurers at the side grinned at the two of them. Usually, these two youths were students of the academy. Yeah, our luck isn't bad. Qin Wentian laughed as he stared at the burly man who spoke. It's better not to run into the dark forest at such a young age. Handsome brat, I'm afraid you haven't tasted the taste of a woman yet. Do you need elder sister's help? Beside the burly man was a woman with a fiery hot figure. She was clad in a tight-fitting adventurer's attire, causing one to drool with desire. Third sister, aren't you a little too insincere? You wouldn't even spare a little kid. If you need anything, look for me. The burly man laughed, his eyes ferociously staring at the woman's ample bosom. Are you more handsome than him? The woman spoke in disdain. Momentarily, the group of adventurers laughed uproariously as they entered the dark forest. Come back safely. Qin Wentian called out to them, as a form of blessing. The burly man waved his hands, this daddy won't die if I don't devour this demoness. Let's hope they can continue to be so heroic and not scheme against each other. Qin Wentian gave his blessings in his heart as he and Fan Lu walked towards the direction of the royal capital. The first time he stepped into the royal capital, he had already encountered the alliance of the 9 academies. Now, it had already been 7 months since then. Time passes by so quickly. Qin Wentian sighed. The autumn wind carried with it a hint of coldness as it caressed his body. The countenance of the youth, compared to the past, was no longer as tender as before. Instead, it was filled with tenacity and determination, as though he was gradually maturing. On the main road of the royal capital, there was a long queue of people. In the queue, there was a dragon horse carriage pulled by 8 dragon horses. What made people astonished was that these dragon horses actually had wings on their backs. This was a mutated dragon horse, the winged dragon horse. It was an extremely valuable breed that could soar through the air, traversing tens of thousands of miles in a single day. There were actually 8 dragon horses pulling the carriage. One could see that the person in the carriage had an esteemed status. Other than that, there was a large group of guards surrounding the carriage. In front of the carriage, there was an old man who had his eyes closed in meditation. However, the aura he exuded was unfathomable. And behind the group of guards, there was a group of youths, all of them filled with vigor and vitality. Their gazes swept over the surroundings, contemplating the royal capital. On both sides of the main road, there were many people whispering to each other. It's said that the person in the carriage is one of the candidates for the position of the Crown Princess of Snowcloud. I wonder why she would grace the Chu country with her presence. Those youths are the disciples of the Snowcloud Martial Academy. I heard that this time around, the ones receiving them would be from the Royal Academy. These people are probably here to test out the strength of the Royal Academy. As the crowd discussed, Qin Wentian and Fan Lu were passing by. Upon hearing the discussions of the crowd, they couldn't help but feel curious. The Crown Princess of Snowcloud actually brought people to the Chu country. From within the carriage, a white palm stretched out, lifting the curtains of the carriage as a pair of beautiful countenances appeared in the eyes of the crowd. It was an extremely beautiful woman, around the age of 18. Her eyes were filled with gentleness, as though there was something weighing on her mind. Qin Wentian's gaze also shifted in that direction. The instant he saw that beautiful face, his body violently trembled as he froze in place. Chapter 71. Sister Yao. Qin Wentian's eyes widened in a daze as he stared at that face. It was actually Qin Yao. As though she sensed something, Qin Yao's gaze also shifted in the direction of Qin Wentian. The instant she saw Qin Wentian, her heart violently trembled. Her beautiful eyes flickered with an intense light, as though she wanted nothing more than to rush down and reunite with Qin Wentian. Their gazes collided in midair. Qin Wentian reacted, as he took large strides towards Qin Wentian. No, now that Wentian is regarded highly by the Emperor's Star Academy, it's better if I don't reunite with him. I don't want him to be dragged into this mess. Qin Yao's heart trembled as she saw Qin Wentian walking over. After which, she let down the curtains and commanded, "Hurry up." As the sound of her voice faded, the speed of the group increased. Qin Wentian had already rushed into the crowd, dashing towards Qin Yao. However, he only saw a silhouette on a horse blocking his path, coldly stating, "Don't get close." Qin Wentian's gaze froze. He could feel the aura of the person on the horse, but he knew that it was impossible for him to rush over. How could this be? Sister Yao saw me, but why did she pretend not to know me? Qin Wentian stood there dumbfounded. The rider coldly glanced at Qin Wentian, and upon seeing that Qin Wentian didn't move, the rider turned and departed. Very quickly, the silhouettes of the group disappeared, leaving Qin Wentian standing there in a daze. Are you acquainted with the person inside? Fan Lu walked over and asked. His gaze was still fixed on Qin Wentian as he nodded his head. I heard from the passers-by that the person inside was one of the candidates for the Crown Prince's wife. Did you get the wrong person? Fan Lu mumbled. Snow Cloud Country, there's no mistaking it. Sister Yao went to Snow Cloud Country to cultivate at the start of the year. What exactly happened in these 7 to 8 months? Qin Wentian's heart was in a state of chaos. Let's go. Filled with bewilderment, Qin Wentian turned and continued his journey in the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy. As for the matter regarding Qin Yao, he was prepared to find out more about it. He had to find out what exactly was going on. After Qin Wentian and Fan Lu brought Little Rascal back to the Emperor's Star Academy, they discovered that many people were looking at them with strange gazes, causing them to involuntarily feel suspicious. Although they could be considered somewhat famous in the Emperor's Star Academy, the gazes of the crowd today were somewhat strange, as though they were filled with pity. Qin Wentian is back. That guy went out to train for over 2 months. It is said that he secretly went to the dark forest. However, I'm afraid he's in for it this time. Many people murmured in a low voice. The news of Qin Wentian's return to the Emperor's Star Academy quickly circulated around. When Qin Wentian returned to his residence, he found that there were many people outside, including Shinran. Shinran, why are you here? Qin Wentian asked suspiciously. How did you guys offend Luo Qianqiu? Shinran anxiously asked. Qin Wentian and Fan Lu exchanged glances. Luo Qianqiu, they didn't seem to know who this person was. 20 days ago, after Luo Qianqiu returned to the academy, he sent someone to pass a message to you, telling you to meet him. Shinran continued. Luo Qianqiu, could it be that young Master Luo? Qin Wentian mumbled. Back then, when he was fighting for the Blood Ember Fruits, Zhao Yi and Franklin appeared, saying that young Master Luo was in the vicinity. Logan immediately offered the Blood Ember Fruits to him. Yes, it should be Luo Qianqiu. You guys really know how to cause trouble. This Luo Qianqiu is a legendary character in the academy. His talent is exceedingly high. Back then, the various elders fought intensely to recruit him. With a cultivation base at the 7th level of arterial circulation, not many people dared to antagonize him. Even those from the Knights Association were afraid of Luo Qianqiu, and never dared to offend him. I've already offended those from the Knights Association. Since I can't avoid it, there's no need to worry about one more. Qin Wentian was extremely calm. This Luo Qianqiu was truly tyrannical. The blood ember fruits he obtained in the dark forest already belonged to him. And when he arrived at the academy, Luo Qianqiu actually came looking for trouble, asking him to meet him. You still haven't figured it out. This Luo Qianqiu is different from those from the Knights Association. Those from the Knights Association have their own considerations, but Luo Qianqiu is different. He has always done whatever he wants, and other than the fact that he hasn't killed anyone within the academy grounds, he has done everything in the past. Not only that, I heard that the power behind him is extremely terrifying. Shinran anxiously explained. It's good that you guys understand. At this moment, a voice drifted over. Qin Wentian and the rest turned around, only to see a person walking over. This person was none other than Franklin, who had appeared together with Zhao Yi back then. You two actually dared to steal the things belonging to young Master Luo? Later on, bring the blood ember fruits to the Azura Association and beg for forgiveness. Maybe, young Master Luo will be lenient with the two of you. Franklin stared at Qin Wentian and Fan Lu. These two fellows and that dog were the ones who had stolen the blood ember fruits cleanly. Steal? Qin Wentian and Fan Lu froze. The treasures in the dark forest belonged to whoever obtained them. What do you mean by stealing? At that time, Luo Qianqiu wasn't even there. Qin Wentian faintly replied. Wasn't the words of Franklin a little too ridiculous? Since Logan gifted the blood ember fruits to young Master Luo, it already belongs to young Master Luo. No one else is allowed to touch it. Seeing that Qin Wentian had actually refuted, Franklin couldn't help but coldly snort. Don't think that just because you are valued by the academy, you have the qualifications to disobey young Master Luo's orders. Young Master Luo can squash a character like Murong Feng to death with a single hand. After which, Franklin flicked his sleeves and turned to leave. He continued, if I don't see you within a day and you don't come and beg for forgiveness, you will have to bear the consequences. Young Master Luo's wrath is not something you can handle. Qin Wentian stared at Franklin's departing back as a cold glint of light flashed in his eyes. Even a lackey can be so arrogant. What a weirdo. Fan Lu coldly remarked. Teacher and Sister Luo Huan, why are you here as well? At this moment, Qin Wentian noticed two silhouettes in the distance. They were actually Mustang and Luo Huan. Little junior brother, you really know how to create trouble. Luo Huan smiled at Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to have a bitter smile on his face. It seemed that this Luo Qianqiu was indeed extraordinary. If not, Teacher Mustang and Senior Sister Luo Huan wouldn't have appeared here. I didn't provoke him at all. Qin Wentian shrugged his shoulders as he explained what had happened. Blood ember fruit, no wonder. After hearing Qin Wentian's explanation, Luo Huan finally understood. Treasures were able to move people's hearts, especially the blood ember fruit, which could aid arterial circulation realm cultivators in breaking through to the next level. Wentian. At this moment, Mustang's gaze shifted onto Qin Wentian as he slowly stated, from the looks of it, there's no problem with your actions. On the contrary, you've already done very well. However, in this world, there's no such thing as absolute right or wrong. Everything depends on one's strength. I can only say that your luck is bad, to have encountered Luo Qianqiu. Luo Qianqiu. Qin Wentian muttered in a low voice. Back then, when he had offended Orkan, Mustang didn't even take him seriously. Evidently, in Mustang's eyes, Luo Qianqiu was even more important than Orkan. Wentian, since you've left the Sky Harmony City, you should understand this logic. Although the outside world is fascinating, it's also filled with dangers. Experts are as common as the clouds, and the number of disciples from the major powers is innumerable. Although your talent is extraordinary, it's not as easy as you imagine it to be for you to mature. How many geniuses have died prematurely in their youth? Mustang slowly explained to Qin Wentian, and this is still within the academy. In the future, when you leave the academy and roam the continent, you'll discover that this is even more so. Sometimes, you have to endure. Teacher, if you have something to say, just tell Wentian. I understand. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. He knew that Mustang wanted to say something, but he was afraid that Mustang would hurt his teacher's morale. Mustang's countenance stiffened, before he nodded his head, go and see Luo Qianqiu. If there's anyone in the academy who dares to kill you, Luo Qianqiu would definitely be one of them. Qin Wentian's eyes narrowed as he asked, what is Luo Qianqiu's identity? For now, there's no need for you to know. Mustang replied, Luo Huan will accompany you. If there are any more blood ember fruits, just give them to Luo Qianqiu. Qin Wentian muttered to himself for a moment before nodding his head with a smile, I will go and see him. Qin Wentian understood that Teacher Mustang was doing this for his own good. Since Luo Qianqiu wanted him to go and see him, he would go. Since this is the case, if there's anything else, you can chat with Luo Huan. I'll take my leave first. Mustang spoke and left. Luo Huan gently tousled Qin Wentian's hair as she smiled, little junior brother, you've grown taller, and you seem even more handsome now. Qin Wentian rolled his eyes as he bitterly smiled, senior sister, I have something that I need your help with. What is it? Luo Huan curiously inquired. Earlier, I saw my elder sister Qin Yao in the royal capital. Not only that, she came here together with people from Snowcloud, and it's said that she's one of the candidates for the crown prince's concubine. Senior sister, can you investigate this matter? Sure, leave this matter to me. I'll look for you tomorrow, and after that, I'll go and see Luo Qianqiu. How about it? Okay. Qin Wentian nodded his head. Luo Huan and Shina also left, leaving behind only Fan Lu and Qin Wentian. Fan Lu stared at Qin Wentian as he asked, do you really want to go? Didn't you see that even Teacher Mustang is here? Of course, I have to see him. Qin Wentian walked into the room, and Fan Lu followed him in. Feeling somewhat depressed, he said, seems like in the future, I have to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Qin Wentian understood Fan Li's meaning. If only they had sufficient strength back then, they would have been able to eliminate Logan, Franklin, and the others. Then, the current situation wouldn't have happened. What about the blood ember fruits? Do you intend to hand them over? Fan Lu curiously stared at Qin Wentian. He knew that although Qin Wentian appeared casual on the surface, he was actually extremely prideful in his heart. If he went to apologize and still wanted to hand over the blood ember fruits, he would definitely lose face. Qin Wentian took out the remaining blood ember fruits and threw them into his mouth, swallowing them in a single gulp. This caused Fan Li's expression to stiffen. This fellow was truly ruthless. After swallowing the blood ember fruits, Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a cold light. Let's hope that Luo Qianqiu wouldn't go too far. As for the blood ember fruits, how could he possibly hand them over? In this world, strength was the most important thing. Without strength, what right do you have to be proud? Without strength, what right do you have to protect your dignity? Without strength, you can't even protect yourself, what right do you have to protect your family and friends? Chapter 72. Qin Wentian swallowed the rest of the blood ember fruits in a single gulp. If they wanted him to see Luo Qianqiu, he could accept it. But if they wanted him to hand over the blood ember fruits that could increase his strength, that was impossible. If his strength was stronger than Luo Qianqiu, he wouldn't be the one going to see Luo Qianqiu. The 3 blood ember fruits instantly caused Qin Wentian's body to burn up. Qin Wentian's face turned crimson red as his blood boiled. His face looked as though it would drip blood at any moment, and a terrifying energy was burning his arterial pathways and acupoints. Qin Wentian gritted his teeth as the violent divine energy and astral energy from the blood ember fruits frenziedly rushed into his arterial pathways and acupoints. Rumbling sounds rang out from within Qin Wentian's body, akin to the roaring of the sea. Qin Wentian ran over and closed the door, silently cursing Qin Wentian for being a madman. The sound of the blood ember fruits unceasingly rang out as Qin Wentian's internal organs were in a state of turmoil. The terrifying divine energy frenziedly rushed into his body, and after half a day, a new arterial pathway was opened up. Boundless astral energy flowed through the newly opened arterial pathway, circulating throughout his entire body. Fourth level of arterial circulation. Fan Lu flipped over on his bed as he sensed the aura emanating from Qin Wentian. His eyes flickered with uncertainty, the effects of the blood ember fruits had yet to dissipate. Pervert. Cursing in a low voice, Fan Lu fell asleep. When he awoke, he discovered that Qin Wentian had already fallen asleep. Starlight shone in through the window, illuminating Qin Wentian's body. Evidently, after using the blood ember fruits, Qin Wentian immediately resumed his cultivation. After breaking through, Qin Wentian could store an even greater amount of astral energy in his body. If he wanted to condense divine energy, he would require even more astral energy. But now, the speed at which he condensed divine energy was much faster than before. After Qin Wentian awoke, he was still immersed in his cultivation. Feeling the surging energy within his body, his mood couldn't help but improve. Nowadays, Qin Wentian had a strong desire for strength. Sometimes, he would think that it would be good if time could pass faster. When Luo Huan arrived, Qin Wentian was still in the midst of his cultivation. Fan Lu woke him up only to see Luo Huan smiling at him. Little junior brother is really hardworking. Senior sister, please don't laugh at me. I am so weak. If I don't grow stronger, I'm afraid I won't even know how I died in the future, said Qin Wentian with a bitter smile. It's already very good. After all, you've only been cultivating for less than a year. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes flickered as she smiled. The matter you asked me to find out has already been completed. Qin Yao is indeed one of the candidates to become the crown princess of the Snow Cloud country. However, based on the information I've gathered, there's almost no hope for her to become the crown princess of the Snow Cloud country. I'm afraid that in the future, she can only be a concubine of the Snow Cloud Emperor. Qin Wentian's expression froze. Imperial concubines? As the descendant of the Chu country's marshal, it would indeed be extremely difficult for Qin Yao to become the legal wife of the Snow Cloud country. I have to ask Sister Qin Yao if she was willing to do so, or if she was forced by others. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. Why did she come to Chu? Qin Wentian asked. She came to the Royal Academy with a few youths from the Snow Cloud Martial Academy. But according to my conjecture, your sister Qin Yao has another motive. In order to save Qin Wu and Qin Chuan, she wanted to use the name of Snow Cloud to exert pressure on Chu. Qin Wentian nodded his head. Qin Yao naturally wanted to save Grandpa Qin and his father. In addition, I have to tell you a piece of bad news. Luo Huan continued, Orkan's cultivation base has broken through to the 9th level of arterial circulation, and his strength is several times stronger than before. Got it. Qin Wentian nodded his head as he sighed in his heart. Everyone was working hard to improve themselves. If he wasn't strong enough, others would leave him in the dust. Okay, let's go meet Luo Qianqiu. Right. Qin Wentian nodded his head. After which, Luo Huan led him and Fan Lu away. On the arena of the Emperor's Star Academy, two silhouettes were currently sparring. Although it was just a sparring session, their methods were extremely ruthless, and each strike was fatal. There were many spectators in the surroundings, and the atmosphere was extremely lively. This time around, Luo Qianqiu's strength has grown even stronger. Even Nantian couldn't defend against his attacks. In the future, young Master Luo will definitely become the true leader of our Azura faction. Many in the crowd smiled and nodded their heads as they stared at the two silhouettes on the arena. Luo Qianqiu was indeed a demon-level character. His rate of growth was too fast, and this was only his second year in the Emperor's Star Academy, yet he was already so terrifying. On the arena, the sound of an intense collision rang out as the two silhouettes separated. After which, Nantian laughed, "Qianqiu, you've grown even stronger. I'm afraid that I won't be your opponent in the near future." Luo Qianqiu was clad in a green robe, appearing extremely neat and tidy. His handsome features, as well as his long hair fluttering in the wind, caused people to look up to him. He was Luo Qianqiu, a legendary character from the previous batch of students in the Emperor's Star Academy. Currently, he had already reached the peak of the 7th level of arterial circulation. Not only that, his combat prowess would only grow even stronger. Luo Qianqiu didn't deny Nantian's words. In fact, even if he were to fight against Nantian now, he didn't think that he would lose. "Young Master Luo." At this moment, below the arena, Farrell called out. After which, he turned his gaze to a spot not far away, only to see three silhouettes walking over. They were none other than Luo Huan, Qin Wentian, and Fan Lu. The two beside Luo Huan are none other than Qin Wentian and Fan Lu. The incident that happened back then was caused by the two of them. Farrell spoke, causing Luo Qianqiu's gaze to shift in the direction of Luo Huan. His eyes instantly locked onto Qin Wentian. Was this person the top ranker of the new batch of students? Qin Wentian, Fan Lu, and the rest walked to a location not far away from the arena. They stared at the silhouette standing on the arena. This person exuded an extraordinary aura, and just by standing there, he attracted the attention of everyone. Although Orkan was also powerful, Orkan was extremely cold. If one were to compare Luo Qianqiu with Orkan, Luo Qianqiu would definitely be more arrogant. Luo Qianqiu calmly stood there, staring at Qin Wentian as he asked, "Are you the one who stole my blood ember fruits?" Qin Wentian and Fan Lu silently shook their heads. However, they also understood that in the current situation, if Luo Qianqiu said it was his, then it was his. "Back then when we were fighting for the blood ember fruits, I didn't know senior brother Luo. I hope senior brother won't blame me." Qin Wentian replied. "Let's cut the crap. I'm sure you still have more blood ember fruits, right? Hand them all over." Luo Qianqiu stood on the arena, his voice indifferent as he calmly stated. The surrounding crowd stared at the silhouette. Although Qin Wentian was also a famous character, there was still a gap between him and Luo Qianqiu. The two of them were still not on the same level. The members of the Azura Alliance also had expressions of interest on their faces. This fellow actually dared to interfere with Luo Qianqiu's blood ember fruits. "The blood ember fruits have already been consumed by me. I hope senior brother can forgive me." Qin Wentian was still as polite as ever. However, expressions of interest appeared on the faces of the spectators. Since the blood ember fruits had already been consumed, there was no longer any meaning for Qin Wentian to come here. Luo Qianqiu lifted his feet and walked down the stairs. "You actually dare to swallow my things?" As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying pressure gushed towards Qin Wentian. Faint flashes of lightning could be seen flickering in the air, the pressure was extremely intense. Boom! Qin Wentian steadied his steps as he stared at Luo Qianqiu. His teacher Mustang and Luo Huan had asked him to come, and he had come to express his attitude. However, he had already consumed the blood ember fruits yesterday, and had no intentions of handing them over. What Luo Qianqiu wanted to do, was not something he could control. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light as she stared at Qin Wentian with a bitter smile on her face. This fellow had actually consumed all the blood ember fruits. Boom! Luo Qianqiu stepped down from the platform, his aura grew even stronger, akin to a raging tempest. That terrifying might of lightning slammed into Qin Wentian's body. The spectators stared at Luo Qianqiu, silently cursing his tyranny. This Qin Wentian was truly unlucky. However, no one sympathized with him. This was a world where strength was everything. Boom! With his third step, Luo Qianqiu appeared in front of Qin Wentian. After which, he lifted his fist and punched towards Qin Wentian. The explosive might of lightning contained within his fist was so strong that it seemed as though it wanted to destroy everything. Qin Wentian felt his scalp going numb as he felt an immense pressure weighing down on him. Gathering all the energy in his body, Qin Wentian's countenance was calm to the extreme. Taking a step forward, he blasted out with the revolving sea imprint as Luo Qianqiu's fist slammed towards him. A thunderous sound echoed out as the raging tempest instantly destroyed the revolving sea imprint. The terrifying might of the attack slammed into Qin Wentian, causing him to groan in agony as he retreated explosively, spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes flickered. She didn't help Qin Wentian. There were some things that Qin Wentian had to face by himself. Arrogant. The crowd stared at Luo Qianqiu's silhouette, only to see him stepping forward once more. His silhouette was akin to a gust of wind, exuding an intense killing intent. Qin Wentian inclined his head, his calm eyes flashing with a cold killing intent. As the raging tempest neared him, the killing intent in his eyes grew denser and denser. Show mercy. At this moment, a thunderous sound rang out in the air. Following which, the crowd only saw a silhouette soaring through the air. Luo Qianqiu's fist stopped right in front of Qin Wentian. The terrifying pressure from the fist slammed into Qin Wentian's face, causing his long hair to flutter in the wind. Luo Qianqiu didn't even bother to look at Qin Wentian. Instead, he inclined his head and stared at the white-robed silhouette in the air. Ling Hua. Luo Qianqiu stared at the silhouette in the air. Can you give me some face? Ling Hua spoke. Luo Qianqiu swept a glance at Qin Wentian. Even at this moment, his countenance was as calm as ever. Maybe, in his heart, he didn't even place Qin Wentian in his eyes. Fine. Since the leader of the Green Cloud Alliance has personally spoken, I will forget about this matter. Luo Qianqiu turned around, as the members of the Azura Alliance watched this scene with interest. They didn't expect that Ling Hua would actually plead for mercy on behalf of Qin Wentian. They had initially thought that if Luo Qianqiu wanted to kill Qin Wentian, the Academy would be the one to step out. The members of the Azura Alliance departed. The crowd stared at Luo Qianqiu's back, as traces of respect could be seen in their eyes. Who wouldn't have known of the demon-level talent of the Emperor's Star Academy, Luo Qianqiu? Compared to him, the current Qin Wentian was still lacking. Today, Qin Wentian could be considered to have escaped with his life. Qin Wentian still stood there, his left sleeve covering his palm. Within his sleeve, a golden short sword could be seen. It was a third-rank divine weapon, the Gold Punisher sword. Did Qin Wentian really escape with his life? If Ling Hua hadn't appeared, the one who died wouldn't have been Qin Wentian. Chapter 73. Qin Wentian's countenance was as calm as ever. From Luo Qianqiu's eyes, he could see disregard. Luo Qianqiu didn't care about him at all. What Luo Qianqiu wanted was the blood ember fruits. From his point of view, the blood ember fruits belonged to him. Luo Qianqiu didn't care about Qin Wentian's life or death. In Luo Qianqiu's eyes, it didn't matter whether he killed Qin Wentian or not. Keeping the gold element sword in his sleeves, Qin Wentian smiled as he watched Luo Qianqiu's departing figure. Initially, he didn't care if Luo Qianqiu was a demon-level genius of the academy. But now, he did. The humiliation he suffered today, he would definitely repay it tenfold in the future. Junior brother. Luo Huan called out. Qin Wentian turned his gaze over and smiled at Luo Huan. It was as though he had already forgotten everything that had happened earlier. Before trampling on Luo Qianqiu's strength, so what if he cared? Many thanks, senior brother. Qin Wentian then glanced at Ling Hua in the air as he expressed his thanks. If Ling Hua hadn't appeared, he would have killed Luo Qianqiu. Regardless of who Luo Qianqiu was, how could he let them off when they wanted to kill him? However, after killing Luo Qianqiu, he was afraid that he would be in deep trouble. Ling Hua's appearance at the very least helped him avoid that. What he needed to do now was to silently raise his strength. No need to stand on ceremony. Work hard. Ling Hua smiled and nodded to Qin Wentian before walking away. Senior sister, I still need you to help me with something. Qin Wentian stared at Luo Huan as he spoke. You don't need to stand on ceremony with me. Luo Huan hugged Qin Wentian's arm. I wish to see my sister Qin Yao. Does senior sister have any way to help me arrange it? Qin Wentian asked. Your sister should be in the Royal Academy right now. I'll think of a way. If there's any news, I'll look for you. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes flashed with contemplation. I'll have to trouble senior sister then. Qin Wentian smiled. Don't worry about such a small matter. What you should do is to raise your strength. Yes, I understand. The corners of Qin Wentian's lips curled up slightly, as a playful smile appeared on his face. Luo Qianqiu, Orkan, and the Knights Association. He was looking forward to the future. With them accompanying him on his path of growth, he would definitely not be lonely. Qin Wentian was happy to accept these challenges. All of this would urge him to ceaselessly become stronger. After returning to his residence, Qin Wentian spent a few days stabilizing his cultivation base. The effects of the 3 blood ember fruits were still present in his body, and Qin Wentian continued to extract more energy from them, stimulating his acupoints and expanding his arterial pathways. Occasionally, he would make a trip to the Divine Weapon Pavilion to forge divine weapons and bring some Yuan meteor stones over to cultivate. The cultivation of the spiritual refinement method was extremely taxing on Yuan meteor stones. Fan Lu seemed to have been stimulated as well. These few days, he was extremely hard-working in his cultivation, and would occasionally head to the Heavenly Star Pavilion and the Astral River Hall. Dream Sky Forest Dreamland, City of Illusions. In a spacious area, 2 people were currently engaged in combat. One of them was clad in the robes of a knight, while the other was clad in a simple white robe. However, on his face, there was a fiery Kirin mask that exuded an aura of savagery. Kacha! A crisp sound rang out as the person clad in the knight's robes had one of his arms broken. The pain caused him to perspire unceasingly. However, the white-robed figure had no intentions of letting him go. His arm was akin to a dragon's claw, and abruptly, his other arm trembled. In an instant, a scream of agony rang out as the other arm of the knight was forcibly broken. Who are you? Which academy are you from? The countenance of the knight paled as he howled in rage. He was a member of the Knights Association, yet there was actually someone who dared to kill him in such a manner. Kacha! Another 2 sounds rang out, as the legs of the Knights Association were broken. Like a corpse, he lay limply on the ground. The white-robed figure immediately departed, disappearing from this area. Not long after, the silhouettes of a group of knights rushed over. Upon seeing their comrade who was curled up on the ground, a cold light flickered in their eyes as they asked, "Who did this?" This was torture, a cruel punishment. Only enemies would do such a thing in the dreamland. I don't know, I'm wearing the Kirin mask. That person was in so much pain that his entire body was convulsing. Kill me first. One of the knights nodded his head, as a long spear pierced through the skull of that person, killing him. Momentarily, that person exited the dreamland. Qin Wentian sprinted in the City of Illusions, his body akin to that of a great rock soaring through the skies, appearing extremely carefree and at ease. His face was covered by the Kirin mask. Since members of the Knights Association could enter the dreamland while wearing the robes of a Knights Association, Qin Wentian wanted to see if it would be the same when he entered the dreamland while wearing the Kirin mask. Evidently, he had succeeded. As long as he met any member of the Knights Association that wasn't too strong, he would mercilessly torture them. Back then, Qin Wentian would never forget the scene of those ice-cold long spears piercing into Fan Li's body. The sprinting Qin Wentian halted his steps on a circular stone platform. He slowly turned and spoke, "You've been following me for so long, come out." From the side of a building, a silhouette walked out. This silhouette had an exquisite figure, with extremely beautiful curves. It was actually a woman, but her face couldn't be seen clearly. She was the same as Qin Wentian, wearing a mask. "I've watched your battle." The dragon subduing fist combined with the Qin Na fist, how ruthless. The voice of the woman was melodious as she slowly walked towards Qin Wentian. "And then?" Qin Wentian calmly asked. "I still want to see how fast your movement technique is." After speaking, the woman's body was like a raging gale as she dashed towards Qin Wentian. Her palms abruptly blasted out, as though a terrifying tempest was tearing through the air. Qin Wentian continuously stepped out, his movements were incomparably exquisite. His entire person flickered as he transformed into a series of afterimages. "Humph," the woman coldly snorted. Her palms grew sharper and sharper, akin to a sharp blade sweeping through the air. Her speed was also extremely fast, and the movement techniques of the two of them were both extremely exquisite. As the battle continued, the woman was astonished. Every single palm strike of hers brushed past Qin Wentian's body. Every time it seemed as though she was about to land a blow, her opponent would always be able to evade at the most dangerous moment. His movement technique was extremely exquisite. Abruptly, she released her astral souls, causing a terrifying tempest to arise in this space. The woman lightly snorted, as boundless palm force blasted out from within the tempest. Qin Wentian felt as though his entire surroundings were being enveloped by the tempest. He could only lift his palms to defend himself. Dragon roars echoed out as his fists were instantly blasted apart. However, his body borrowed the force of the impact and floated far away, appearing extremely carefree. "What's the use of dodging?" the woman coldly snorted. Her movement technique increased in speed, as a tyrannical tempest engulfed Qin Wentian within it. Her silhouette instantly appeared beside Qin Wentian, as countless palm imprints blasted out simultaneously. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed like lightning. His body transformed into a shadow as he executed the Garuda movement technique to the extreme, consecutively dodging several palm imprints. It was an extremely thrilling experience. At the same time, he punched out, aiming for the woman's face. The expression in the woman's eyes changed as she saw the incoming fist light. "Come again tomorrow." As the sound of her voice faded, the dragon subduing fists blasted out, destroying the woman. At the same time, Qin Wentian had no way to dodge the palm imprint of his opponent, and was also blasted out of the dreamscape. "Who?" In the dream sky forest, Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. His body was currently lying in a secluded location. Removing his mask, Qin Wentian sat up. 5th level of arterial circulation, storm-type astral soul, powerful movement techniques, and powerful palm techniques. "I wonder which academy she is from," Qin Wentian mumbled. Battling with that woman was beneficial to the tempering of his Garuda movement technique. Of course, the prerequisite was that he didn't use his divine energy to directly kill his opponent. Leaving the dream sky forest, Qin Wentian continued his cultivation. The next day, he entered the dream sky forest and entered the city of illusions, continuing his training. At the same time, he didn't forget to kill members of the Knights Association. When he arrived at the location yesterday, the woman was still there. "This time around, you won't be so lucky." The woman spoke, as she instantly dashed towards Qin Wentian. The two of them exchanged moves once again, and in the end, Qin Wentian blasted his opponent to death once again. For the next few days, the woman came to the City of Illusions every day, and although she was blasted to death again and again, she didn't seem to mind. When sparring with Qin Wentian, she discovered that her innate techniques had improved by leaps and bounds. However, what made her depressed was that the Kirin masked man's improvement was even faster than hers. Although his cultivation base was weaker than hers, he was still able to kill her every time. To Qin Wentian, this was merely a small interlude. Every day, he would head to that place to battle, and it would be beneficial to him in tempering his movement techniques. But other than tempering his movement techniques, he was also tempering his combat prowess. After challenging many opponents in the City of Illusions, many people started to know that there was a person wearing a Kirin mask in the City of Illusions. His attacks were extremely ruthless, and his combat prowess was also extraordinary. In the Royal Academy, there was also a Dream Sky Forest, which was created by the seniors of the Emperor's Star Academy. At this moment, in the Dream Sky Forest of the Royal Academy, a woman took off her mask and stomped her feet, as though she was unwilling to give up. Bastard! Mu Ro cursed in a low voice as she was blasted out once again. That fellow really didn't know how to show mercy to the fairer sex. This time around, she didn't even have the chance to speak before he killed her. What's wrong? Our Miss Mu is being abused again. A low laugh drifted over from the side. It was also a masked young woman. The two of them walked out of the Dream Sky Forest, taking off their masks at the same time. Both of them were exceedingly beautiful. Screw you, but that fellow's movement technique is truly powerful. Even now, I can't even touch him. Mu Ro said in a depressed tone. Is that so? Tomorrow, I shall go and meet him as well. Who exactly is he that our Miss Mu can't forget about every day? Chu Ling teased. Are you still free? Didn't your clan ask you to accompany Qin Yao? Mu Ro asked. A woman from a rebellious clan actually became the crown princess of Snowcloud Country. What a joke. Chu Ling disdainfully replied. You can't do that, the Qin clan is actually quite pitiful as well. Mu Ro sighed. It's fine if you say this in front of me, but don't speak nonsense outside. Chu Ling's countenance changed. Mu Ro lightly nodded her head, she naturally understood. Chapter 74. Today, Luo Huan arrived at Qin Wentian's residence. However, she only saw Fan Lu and Little Rascal. Where's Wentian? Luo Huan asked. Senior sister, come in and have a seat. Fan Li's eyes shone with a bright light when he saw Luo Huan. That fellow has been training in the Dream Sky Forest from day to night. He's too crazy, Fan Lu replied. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes flickered. That fellow, the matter with Luo Qianqiu must have caused him to feel agitated. After all, Luo Qianqiu's disregard for the Dream Sky Forest was something that even she couldn't stand. Naturally, such agitation was also the driving force behind Qin Wentian's actions. I'll sit here and wait for him to return. Fatty, come out and chat with me. Luo Huan sat down in front of an ancient tree outside the residence. Fatty nodded as he excitedly ran over, silently praying in his heart that Qin Wentian wouldn't return today. At this moment, Qin Wentian was still in the City of Illusions. His fiery red Kirin mask exuded a malevolent aura. Below his feet, an expert from the Knights Association screamed in agony as he stared venomously at Qin Wentian. Who was it that was targeting their Knights Association? The strength of this masked man was growing stronger and stronger. They were even suspecting if this was the same person. Abruptly, several figures clad in the robes of the Knights Association appeared on the roofs of the surrounding buildings. Their gazes were incomparably cold, and their killing intent was ferocious. I really want to see who exactly you are. Yanaro's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared directly at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian inclined his head and similarly stared at Yanaro. Back then, Yanaro had blocked his path and injured him with a single finger strike. It was Rain who had helped him out of the predicament. Orkan wasn't in the academy, and it seemed that Yanaro was temporarily in charge of the Knights Association. Stretching out his hand, Qin Wentian pointed at Yanaro as he executed a decapitation gesture. His eyes, which were not covered by the mask, flickered with killing intent. Yanaro's countenance stiffened. What an arrogant fellow. The silhouettes of the Knights Association flickered as they dashed towards Qin Wentian. However, at the same time, Qin Wentian also sped towards a certain direction. His silhouette flickered, leaving behind numerous afterimages. Kill. The expert from the Knights Association who blocked Qin Wentian had a cultivation base at the 5th level of arterial circulation. His spear pierced out with the speed of lightning, and just as it was about to pierce into Qin Wentian's body twisted slightly. A gust of wind gusted by, and the expert from the Knights Association felt a bone-chilling coldness emanating from his neck. Qin Wentian walked past him and continued to move forward. Divine origin energy gathered under his feet, and he suddenly stomped on the ground. His body soared into the sky like a rock spreading its wings, and he landed on the top of a building. Turning his head back, Qin Wentian's gaze pierced straight towards Yanaro. After which, his silhouette disappeared from the sight of the experts from the Knights Association. This movement technique. Yanaro's countenance stiffened as he stared at the gigantic building. He knew that he wouldn't be able to do such a thing as leaping up into the air. I really want to see who you are. Yanaro dashed forwards, madly chasing after Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's body was as light as a swallow, sprinting madly, shaking off the experts from the Knights Association. The current him was no longer the same Qin Wentian who had just entered the Emperor's Star Academy. He believed that it wouldn't be long before he could trample Yanaro beneath his feet. Unknowingly, he had once again arrived at the location where he fought against that female cultivator. But this time around, he saw two people. Other than the female cultivator from before, there was another female cultivator wearing a phoenix mask. Kiran mask, is that him? Chu Ling asked Mu-Ro. Mu-Ro nodded her head, causing an expression of interest to appear on Chu Ling's face. My movement technique has improved a little these past few days, and I still have to thank you. Mu-Ro shifted her gaze onto Qin Wentian as she stated, my name is Mu-Ro, a student from the Royal Academy. Can we get to know each other? After which, Mu-Ro removed the mask on her face, revealing her beautiful countenance. Mu-Ro and Chu Ling both stared at Qin Wentian, as though they were waiting for him to remove his mask. However, under their gazes, Qin Wentian turned and lifted his foot, departing the area. Mu-Ro's countenance stiffened as a hint of disappointment flickered in her eyes. She had already removed her mask, yet this fellow didn't even have the slightest interest in getting to know her. Stop right there. Chu Ling shouted. Qin Wentian halted his steps as he calmly stared at Mu-Ro. Aren't you a little too insincere? Mu-Ro has already removed her mask, how can you still be like this? Chu Ling unhappily stated. Qin Wentian's eyes flickered as he replied, did I agree to anything? Mu-Ro and Chu Ling froze, not knowing what to say. It seemed like it was indeed Mu-Ro's one-sided wish to get to know him. In reality, she and Qin Wentian had never truly spoken to each other before. The only reason why she wanted to get to know him was because the two of them sparred with each other every day. Who would have thought that Qin Wentian couldn't even be bothered with her? In another direction, several silhouettes appeared, causing Qin Wentian's eyes to flash with a cold light. These fellows were really chasing after him. Yanaro. Mu-Ro's countenance changed. She didn't expect to meet this fellow here. Mu-Ro. Yanaro's countenance flickered with interest as he slowly walked forward. With a smile, he stated, Mu-Ro, ever since we parted, I've missed you a lot. Yanaro, don't talk nonsense. Mu-Ro coldly retorted. Why are you always bothering Mu-Ro? Chu Ling cursed in a low voice, causing Yanaro's gaze to shift to the masked Chu Ling as he laughed, so it's Princess Ling, So what if I am? You have no sense of shame. Chu Ling removed her mask as she coldly replied. Is that so? A cold light flickered in Yanaro's eyes as he walked towards Mu-Ro and Chu Ling, causing Mu-Ro's countenance to change as she asked, what do you want? I don't want to do anything. Since we've met in this dreamscape, Mu-Ro, why must you be so distant? Yanaro walked towards Mu-Ro, his eyes gleaming with sharpness. These two girls really didn't give him any face. Kill him. At the same time, Yanaro pointed his finger at Qin Wentian. Immediately, a few members of the Knights Association surrounded Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, who was originally prepared to leave, didn't feel like leaving at this moment. Staring at the silhouettes surrounding him, he abruptly dashed towards one of them. That person stared at Qin Wentian as he released his astral souls. His palms blasted outwards as a terrifying surge of energy gushed forth, transforming into the form of a roaring python. Qin Wentian's palms trembled. This time around, he didn't evade. Instead, he punched out with the dragon-subduing fists. Draconic roars echoed in the air as the tyrannical divine energy contained within the dragon-subduing fists crushed everything in its path. With a thunderous boom, the head of that person exploded, dying instantly. This scene caused the countenance of the silhouette that was rushing over to stiffen. But at this moment, he only felt Qin Wentian's silhouette transforming into a blur, so blurry that he couldn't even see him clearly. He felt a cold sensation on his neck as a gust of raging wind gusted by. Yanaro, Muro, and Chu Ling all witnessed this scene. A cold light flickered in Yanaro's eyes, while the beautiful eyes of Muro and Chu Ling shone with a strange light. Qin Wentian's strength was extremely strong, 5th level of arterial circulation. Yanaro's gaze was as sharp as a blade. During these few days, the person who hunted the members of the Knights Association had actually advanced from the 4th level of arterial circulation to the 5th level of arterial circulation? Or could it be that Qin Wentian had intentionally concealed his true strength before this? In the past, when we fought, he actually didn't use his full strength. Mu Ro's beautiful eyes froze as she felt the pressure. Her cultivation base was also at the 5th level of arterial circulation, but when Qin Wentian fought with her previously, he had always been at the 4th level of arterial circulation. In reality, when Qin Wentian sparred with her for the first time, his cultivation base was indeed at the 4th level of arterial circulation. It was only because of his crazy cultivation that he had stepped into the 5th level of arterial circulation 2 days ago. Qin Wentian stopped not far away from Yanaro. The aura of a cultivator at the 5th level of arterial circulation was incomparably tyrannical as he spoke to Muro, "Let's go. Be careful." Muro nodded her head, as she left together with Chu Ling. The students of the academy could do whatever they wanted in the dreamscape, and Yanaro didn't care about the rules at all. It was indeed possible that he would do something that would embarrass her. "I'm really curious, who are you exactly?" Yanaro's aura of a cultivator at the 7th level of arterial circulation erupted forth. Taking a step forward, a terrifying pressure bore down on Qin Wentian. His body trembled as he stabbed out with his finger, aiming for Qin Wentian. Numerous sharp swords appeared in the air. Qin Wentian didn't retreat. Instead, he punched out with the dragon-subduing fist, shattering the finger light as the roars of dragons echoed out. "Humph," Yanaro snorted as he took a step forward. His 5 fingers punched out, and it was as though there were countless sharp swords howling in the air as they slashed out. Qin Wentian didn't retreat. Instead, he abruptly stepped out, causing the ground to tremble. His silhouette transformed into a blur as he dashed towards Yanaro. Even though he was punching out with his fists, the violent divine energy within his body was still as ferocious as before. "You are courting death." Yanaro roared in rage. His entire body was enveloped in sword chi, penetrating through everything. Both his palms slammed out, as though there were countless beams of sword light slashing towards Qin Wentian, tearing apart the entire space. The sound of metal clashing rang out unceasingly. Yanaro coldly laughed in his heart. His opponent allowed the sword chi to attack him, and his body was as fast as lightning. His fists howled as they blasted towards Yanaro's head. Scram! Yanaro roared in rage. His palms were like swords as he slashed out. His opponent's body swayed once again, and he managed to dodge the attack. His sword pierced into his opponent's body, but his fist had also blasted apart his opponent's head. Yanaro let out a low growl when he woke up in the dream sky forest. He had actually been killed by a mere 5th level arterial circulation realm cultivator. What a great humiliation. Which academy was this person from? How could he be so crazy? Ignoring the pain of the sword chi piercing into his body, he still wanted to kill him. Naturally, he wouldn't have thought that the person who killed him was actually Qin Wentian. Although Qin Wentian had used the dragon subduing fist, there were many people who knew the dragon subduing fist. And in his impression, Qin Wentian was just a weakling with a decent talent. At the same time, Qin Wentian was already thinking that the next time they fought, the ending would be different. Chapter 75. Qin Wentian stood up and left the Dream Sky Forest. In his heart, he was thinking, if he was the one fighting against Yanaro, what would have happened? Wentian. Qin Wentian, who was in the midst of contemplation, turned to Luo Huan upon hearing her voice. Smiling, he greeted, "Senior sister, you're here. Emichum, didn't you say that you wanted to meet with your sister Qin Yao? I've asked around for you, there's someone who can help you with this matter." Luo Huan spoke to Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to feel joy. He really wanted to meet with Qin Yao and have a chat with her. What are the arrangements? Qin Wentian inquired. 7 days later, there will be a banquet personally hosted by the third prince. In name, Qin Yao is invited, but at the same time, there are also many people from the aristocratic circles invited. I've already contacted some acquaintances, and they can arrange for you to attend. However, you might meet some people you don't wish to see, so I'm not sure if you're willing to go. Luo Huan smiled, causing Qin Wentian's eyes to flicker with sharpness. Banquet of the royal clan. The people of Snowcloud Country are very protective of Qin Yao. It won't be easy to meet with her. Luo Huan continued. Qin Wentian naturally understood this point. His status was extremely awkward. It was naturally impossible for someone from the Qin clan to enter the aristocratic circles. Senior sister, I've troubled you to ask for help from the aristocratic circles. Qin Wentian gratefully thanked Qin Yao. Since there was such an opportunity, he naturally wouldn't miss it. You are really stubborn. Luo Huan rolled her eyes at Qin Wentian. I don't dislike those from the aristocratic circles. On the contrary, many of them are extremely outstanding. Other than a few silk pants like Yi Wu Kei and Orkan, they are all extremely outstanding. What I don't like is that they have brought that kind of atmosphere to the Emperor Star Academy. Wentian, in this royal capital, you have to be vigilant at all times. Don't underestimate your enemies. For example, in the royal clan of Chu, there are 4 princes and 5 princesses. These 4 princes are all exceedingly outstanding. The third prince that I mentioned earlier is one of them. He's also the most likely candidate to inherit the Chu country. This time around, you should pay attention to him. Yes. Qin Wentian lightly nodded his head, feeling moved in his heart. The fact that the members of the Knights Association were able to form such a powerful force within the Emperor's Star Academy undoubtedly proved how outstanding the members of the Knights Association were. With a large amount of resources, they all worked hard to cultivate. For ordinary people, if they didn't work hard and didn't struggle, it would be very difficult to compare with them. Hence, countless people wanted to enter the Emperor's Star Academy. Because in here, they could rely on their own hard work to obtain good cultivation techniques, innate techniques, and other cultivation resources. Not only that, they wouldn't need to be restricted by others. Senior sister, there are still 7 days left. During these 7 days, can you help me temper my movement technique? Qin Wentian asked Luo Huan. You want senior sister to accompany you for so long? Luo Huan smiled as she looked at Qin Wentian. Senior sister, my movement technique has reached a bottleneck. You have to help me. Qin Wentian shamelessly replied. Naturally, he would only do this to people he was close to. Evidently, he had already treated Luo Huan as his own kin. Okay. Luo Huan giggled. Ever since she first met Qin Wentian, it had already been 8 months. She watched as Qin Wentian gradually matured, shedding away the immaturity that he once had. experience would allow him to slowly transform. I also want to temper my movement technique. Fatty pitifully stared at Luo Huan. With that body of yours? Luo Huan disdainfully glanced at Fatty. Fatty's countenance instantly collapsed. This was too much bullying. In Luo Huan's residence, on a piece of empty land, Fatty sat at the side while Little Rascal squatted beside him, its eyes staring straight ahead. In front of them, Luo Huan's long whip transformed into countless whip shadows that filled the sky, lashing out in a frenzy. As for Qin Wentian, his footwork had also reached the pinnacle of perfection. Just by looking at his footwork, one would feel a sense of profoundness. In that empty space, only his afterimage could be seen. This fellow's cultivation base has already reached the 5th level of arterial circulation, and his movement technique is also so powerful. Fatty's eyes shone. It seemed like Qin Wentian's hard work these few days had not been in vain. Back then, he had despised Qin Wentian for having a low cultivation base. Now, he had been left behind, and was only at the peak of the 4th level of arterial circulation. Pang! A crisp sound rang out. Qin Wentian's body was coiled around by the long whip as his robes were torn apart. Stabilizing his body, he bitterly smiled. Senior sister, there's no need to be so ruthless. If I'm not serious, how can you feel the pressure? Luo Huan giggled, and before the sound of her voice faded, another illusory whip swept past. Qin Wentian's steps faltered, and the long whip whistled past his body, causing him to be speechless. He could only focus and use all his strength to evade. The feeling of being hit by a long whip wasn't so pleasant. After half a day, Qin Wentian's entire body was drenched in sweat. His robes were torn apart, and traces of blood seeped out. Fatty's heart trembled as he silently swore that he wouldn't do something as foolish as Qin Wentian. Okay, take a rest. How do you feel? Luo Huan giggled as she looked at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian walked towards Luo Huan, only to see her perspiration dripping down her body. Her hair was wet, and her voluptuous figure was illuminated by the perspiration, with her breasts faintly discernible. Looking at this alluring scene, Qin Wentian had the urge to have a nosebleed. Senior sister, you are so beautiful. Qin Wentian laughed, causing Luo Huan to freeze. Staring at the silhouette in front of her, she laughed. Good brat, you actually dare to tease your senior sister. I'm just speaking the truth. Qin Wentian shrugged his shoulders. Okay, let's continue. Luo Huan's eyes flashed with a brilliant light as she giggled, causing Qin Wentian to shiver. The two of them continued. Under Luo Huan's oppressive guidance, Qin Wentian's movement technique improved every day. Finally, on the 5th day, his Garuda movement technique stepped into the perfect grade. He was only left with the final step, the divine movement realm. However, if he wanted to reach the divine movement realm, he would still need to hunt more demonic beasts. After stepping into the perfect grade movement technique, even Luo Huan had to be a little more serious in order to hit Qin Wentian. That perfect grade movement technique, as well as his lightning-fast movements, caused her to be extremely shocked. She also gained a new understanding of the extremely difficult to cultivate Garuda movement technique. In the City of Illusions, Mu Rou had just finished a battle. Unknowingly, she returned to that familiar place. Staring at the empty stone platform, she felt a tinge of disappointment in her heart. That fellow actually didn't appear again. Mu Rou's beautiful eyes flickered. Ever since she removed her mask, that Qilin-masked man had never appeared again. Initially, she wanted to thank him, but she didn't even have the chance to do so. Maybe it was because of the habit she had developed during that period of time. Mu Rou still wanted to come here and spar with that Qilin-masked man, tempering her movement technique. Sadly, she didn't know when he would appear again. Miss Mu, are you thinking of love again? At this moment, a lovable laughter drifted over. Mu Rou turned and glared at the phoenix-masked woman. I only wanted to thank him in person. How could it be as dirty as you make it out to be? Is that so? Then why do you still come here every day? Chu Ling asked suspiciously. I'm just trying my luck. These few days, my movement technique has improved again, so I wanted to spar with him. Mu Ro's voice was soft and gentle. Okay, let's go out. There are still 2 days left. The third prince will be inviting Qin Yao to a banquet. At that time, let's go together. Chu Ling spoke as the two of them turned and prepared to depart. The third prince's personality has always been domineering. I heard that he was one of the reasons why he acted against the Qin clan back then. He's an extremely decisive person. Why would he invite Qin Yao to a banquet this time around? Mu Ro curiously asked. She had naturally heard of the personalities of the princes of the royal clan. The third prince was young, and had outstanding talent. Not only that, he was also extremely intelligent. The reason why Qin Yao came here today was because of Qin Wu and Qin Chuan. According to the third prince's personality, he definitely wouldn't care about the attitude of the Snow Cloud country. Not only that, the third prince's personality was the most similar to the emperor when he was young. In addition to his talent in cultivation, he was highly regarded by the emperor. Now that the emperor was already old, he had already started to pave the way for the third prince to ascend the throne. How can we guess the thoughts of third brother? However, if Qin Yao wants to save Qin Wu and Qin Chuan, it's undoubtedly the ravings of a lunatic. I'm afraid that she would be humiliated by third brother. Chu Ling coldly snorted. This time around, third brother invited many people, including Mo Qingcheng. I'm afraid that he wants to express his stance and attitude. Chu Ling was a princess, the daughter of a king. Based on their relationship, she could refer to the third prince as her elder brother. Yanaro will definitely go as well. Mu Ro gloomily replied. He should be there, but Yanaro wouldn't dare to be arrogant there. Chu Ling consoled. However, there's something very infuriating. Someone actually asked me to bring a person to the banquet. Who? Mu Ro asked. Emperor Star Academy, Qin Wentian, someone from the Qin clan. Chu Ling disdainfully replied, it said that this person's talent isn't bad, and his character is extremely arrogant. He even killed Orkhan's younger brother, Orphan, and doesn't know when to back off. Now, in order to see Qin Yao, he didn't hesitate to find someone to help him find me. Qin Wentian. Mu Ro had heard this name a few times before. Smiling, she continued, he and Qin Yao are brother and sister, what's the point of trying to curry favor with her? Not only that, since it's your friend who asked you to help, you should be calm and not make things difficult for others. If not, wouldn't you be making things difficult for your friend? Chu Ling curled her lips. Since she heard that her friend was also asked to help by someone else, she didn't really care. Chapter 76. 2 days later, Qin Wentian arrived at the entrance of a manor. The person who sent him here had already left after sending him here. This manor was located in the 5th district of the royal capital. The people who lived in this district were all nobles and aristocrats. Inclining his head, he could see a huge signboard with the words, Violet King's Manor, engraved on it. Violet King's Manor. Qin Wentian was somewhat familiar with this name. Abruptly, his eyes narrowed as he recalled that during Bai Qingsong's birthday celebration, the Violet King's Manor was one of the many transcendent powers in the royal capital. The Violet King's Manor sent people to Sky Harmony City to celebrate Bai Qingsong's birthday. Evidently, it was because of the Yi clan. Although the Yi clan was powerful, for a majestic king to have fallen to such a state, I'm afraid that they're not a king's manor. Qin Wentian silently speculated in his heart. What a coincidence. Asking for help, he'd actually ended up in the Violet King's Manor. Qin Wentian didn't know how the Bai clan was doing. That hypocrite Bai Qingsong had left a deep impression on him. His foster father had only agreed to the marriage because the ancestor of the Bai clan had some ties with Qin Wu. Qin Wentian had also treated the Bai clan with sincerity, but he wasn't as vicious as the Bai clan. In the end, he'd even helped the Yi clan to annihilate the Qin clan. If it was merely the expulsion of him from the Qin clan, he could still endure it. But the Bai clan had participated in the annihilation of the Qin clan. This matter would never be forgotten by Qin Wentian. Autumn Snow, she's also in the Royal Academy, right? Qin Wentian mused. From within the Violet King's manor, a few silhouettes walked out. Qin Wentian's eyes narrowed as he gazed in their direction. This woman was actually someone he had met in the Dreamsky Forest. During those days, he had often fought with this woman to train his movement skills, which had helped him a lot. On the last day, another woman appeared, who seemed to be quite willful and had the temperament of a young lady. She was none other than this woman. Although Qin Wentian recognized Chu Ling didn't recognize him. Walking to Qin Wentian's side, she coldly asked, "Are you Qin Wentian?" "Yes." Qin Wentian nodded. "Wear this and you'll be my guard. Since I've promised someone else, I'll bring you in. However, don't give me any trouble." Chu Ling said. Qin Wentian's identity was a little sensitive. The Yi clan and the O clan weren't very friendly to him. If others knew that she had helped Qin Wentian, it wouldn't be good. "All right." Qin Wentian put on the guard's uniform. Chu Ling seemed to be a little cold towards him, but this was also what he wanted. He didn't want to have anything to do with her. "You guys follow behind, let's go." Chu Ling mounted her horse and galloped away. Qin Wentian and the other two guards followed closely behind, their speed was extremely fast. After a few hours, Qin Wentian discovered that Chu Ling had already brought him into the royal palace. However, they were on the left side of the royal palace, arriving at a gigantic manor. This manor had mountains and rivers, and the area it occupied was unfathomably vast. In fact, Qin Wentian could even sense traces of demonic qi emanating from it. Half of the imperial city is surrounded by the dark forest, including the imperial palace. There's demonic qi in this place, and it's connected to the imperial palace. It should be the dark forest outside the imperial palace. To think that there's actually a manor here, how luxurious. Qin Wentian gazed ahead. He could see several luxurious villas in the distance. It was a resting place in the middle of the dark forest. Only the members of the major clans would be able to afford such a luxurious manor. This is the imperial palace's hunting ground, it extends all the way to the depths of the dark forest. Follow closely. Otherwise, don't blame me if you get swallowed by demonic beasts. Chu Ling shouted as she rode on her horse. She didn't even turn her head as she galloped forward, ignoring the guards and Qin Wentian behind her. Indeed, she has the temperament of a young miss. Qin Wentian silently mused as he increased his speed. This hunting ground of the imperial palace was so vast, he would only be able to see Qin Yao when the banquet started. Muro. At this moment, Chu Ling heard a few silhouettes calling out to her. Those people were all mounted on white horses, and when they heard the voice, they slowed down. The female knight in the lead turned around and smiled. "Chu Ling, you've arrived as well. Seems like we're all early." Chu Ling laughed. Behind Muro, there were also two guards. However, her guards were all mounted on white horses. From this, one could tell that Muro and Chu Ling had different styles of doing things. For aristocrats like Chu Ling, her guards were all extremely powerful wuxiu. Their duty was to ensure the safety of their masters, and at the same time, enjoy the cultivation resources provided by their masters. Their statuses were extremely low, and only guards with outstanding strength would be valued. But even so, they still didn't have much freedom. Hence, those with true talent wouldn't be willing to become the guards of others. At the very least, they would want to be guests. Qin Wentian was astonished to see Muro. This girl was the one he sparred with many times in the City of Illusions. He didn't expect to meet her here as well. Muro seemed to have sensed something as her beautiful eyes shifted in the direction of Qin Wentian. As though she knew who Qin Wentian was, she lightly nodded her head, causing Qin Wentian to be stunned. Mu Rou shouldn't know him. Qin Wentian didn't know that Chu Ling had mentioned to Mu Rou that she would bring him here. Hence, Mu Rou guessed that he was Qin Wentian. However, she naturally wouldn't know that he was the man wearing the Kirin mask from the City of Illusions. Let's go. Chu Ling furrowed her brows when she saw Mu Rou noticing Qin Wentian. She swept a glance at Qin Wentian. She didn't want others to know that she was helping Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's senses were extremely sharp. How could he not sense Chu Ling's obvious attitude? When I see Sister Qin Yao, I will no longer have anything to do with her. Qin Wentian sighed. He didn't like Chu Ling's character. Since she had promised her friend to bring him here, why did she have to look down on him? If she was afraid of implicating him, she wouldn't have agreed to her friend's request. At the same time, in the royal hunting grounds located at the border between the Dark Forest and the Imperial Palace, many nobles had arrived. The third prince was still young. Hence, the people he invited were naturally not from the older generation. Instead, they were all young nobles. The Yi clan's disciples had also arrived. Yi Zhan from the Royal Academy had also arrived at the royal hunting grounds. Other than his guards, he also brought along 2 people. Lu Yan, this is the royal hunting grounds. The disciples of the royal clan like to start their hunt here in the Dark Forest, tempering their strength. Yi Zhan smiled at the girl beside him. This girl was actually Lu Yan. Beside her, her elder brother Lu Yu was present as well. Back then, Yi Zhan, Orphan and the rest were pursuing Qin Wentian and Fan Lu. Yi Zhan halted his steps when he saw Lu Yan. That was the day he got to know Lu Yan, and after that, he began to pursue her. Initially, because of Qin Wentian, Lu Yan was somewhat conflicted. However, Yi Zhan truly treated her very well, and in addition to Lu Yu's constant persuasion, she gradually accepted Yi Zhan. After all, what Lu Yu said was the truth. In this vast Chu country, there were many people with outstanding talent that surpassed them. They didn't have any backing, nor did they have any resources. How could they compare to others? Sooner or later, they would end up like their friends, dying a silent death while hunting demonic beasts. Too imposing, as expected of the royal hunting grounds of the Chu country. Lu Yu, who was at the side, continued, Yi Zhan, if it wasn't for you, Lu Yan and I wouldn't even have the qualifications to enter this place. Big brother, we are brothers, there's no need to be so polite. Yi Zhan's smile was gentle, and in addition to his handsome countenance, it caused people to feel extremely comfortable. Ha, that's right. From now on, we are brothers. Lu Yu laughed uproariously, appearing extremely carefree. Even before the sound of Lu Yu's voice faded, his gaze abruptly froze as he stared ahead, only to see a dreamlike beauty appearing there. Yi Zhan followed Lu Yu's gaze as his eyes narrowed. The number 1 beauty of Chu, Mo Qingcheng. Mo Qingcheng is here as well. Lu Yu murmured. He had only seen Mo Qingcheng once during the 9 Great Martial Academy's refinement grounds, and it was already hard for him to forget her. This woman was simply too breathtaking. However, he was also clear of his own status. It was impossible for him to have any interactions with Mo Qingcheng. He could only fantasize about her in his heart. The number 1 beauty of Chu, she is indeed very beautiful. Lu Yan herself was also a beauty, but when she saw Mo Qingcheng, she couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. It was as though when she stood in front of Mo Qingcheng, she was inexplicably weaker than her. Other than Mo Qingcheng, her friend Nolan was present as well. The two of them also saw the group of people here, but they quickly turned and walked away. That woman actually got together with Yi Zhan. I wonder if that brat Qin Wentian would be angered to death if he knew about this. Even now, that fellow still thinks that it was that woman who saved him, Nolan whispered. Mo Qingcheng's beautiful countenance stiffened upon hearing her words. After which, she added in a low voice, I still owe him an apology. Why are you so stubborn? No matter what, you saved him once, and even carried him on your back, giving him a high-grade second-level medicinal pill. So what if you misunderstood him? Let's just say that we're even. Nolan rolled her eyes at Mo Qingcheng. But the situation that day, he must have been in despair. Mo Qingcheng sighed. Thinking back to that day when Qin Wentian carried Fan Lu on his back, she couldn't help but blame herself. Chapter 77. Chu Ling and Mu Rou rode on their horses, bringing Qin Wentian and the rest to a vast grassy field. In front of them, there was an entrance that was actually guarded by armored soldiers. This should be the royal garden of the hunting grounds. Qin Wentian gazed at the entrance. The structure was tall and majestic, exuding an aura of elegance and uniqueness. Not only that, it was extremely spacious. The descendants of the royal clan loved to stay here, as they entered the dark forest to hunt. His Highness the Third Prince and the esteemed guests from Snowcloud have yet to arrive. Please wait here and rest. A soldier walked up, as he spoke to Chu Ling and Mu Rou. The two of them dismounted their horses and waited outside. They both knew that there were other entrances to the royal garden. What a big face the Snowcloud country has. Chu Ling unhappily replied. After all, they are our guests. Let's just wait patiently. Mu Rou shook her head with a smile. At this moment, more and more people arrived, and all of them greeted Chu Ling and Mu Rou. Evidently, the majority of them were acquainted with each other. Although they weren't very familiar with each other, on the surface, they appeared to be in harmony. Chu Ling, at this moment, a voice drifted over. Chu Ling turned her gaze over, and upon seeing the person who spoke, she couldn't help but smile. Yi Zhan, you're here as well. Yeah, I'm here. Yi Zhan smiled and nodded his head. After which, he shifted his gaze onto Qin Wentian, who was standing behind Chu Ling. Qin Wentian's eyes were ice cold, and flashed with killing intent. Evidently, Qin Wentian had recognized Yi Zhan. This was the person who had hunted him together with Orphan. Yi Zhan's countenance froze for a moment before he recovered, as a light smile appeared on his face. Qin Wentian. Yi Zhan spat out. Immediately, several people turned their gazes towards Qin Wentian, and very quickly, they recalled this name. After the Qin clan, a celebrity from the Emperor's Star Academy who killed Orphan from the O clan. Chu Ling's expression stiffened. This Yi Zhan was acquainted with Qin Wentian. Not only that, he even called out Qin Wentian's name in such a loud voice. This caused her to be in a difficult position. However, the Yi clan's influence was so great that even her Violet Palace couldn't compare to it. However, when Qin Wentian saw Lu Yan and Lu Yu standing beside Yi Zhan, he couldn't help but feel uncomfortable in his heart. Back then in the dark forest, Yi Zhan and Orphan had chased after him and Fan Lu. At that time, they had coincidentally saved Lu Yan. In order to prevent trouble from befalling Lu Yan, Qin Wentian had even instructed Lu Yan not to reveal that she was acquainted with him. However, Qin Wentian had never expected that Lu Yan would be together with Yi Zhan. Furthermore, their relationship seemed to be quite intimate. Yi Zhan seemed to have noticed Qin Wentian's gaze. Smiling, he pulled on Lu Yan's hand as he asked, Yan, you should be acquainted with him long ago, right? Lu Yan's countenance was filled with awkwardness. After all, she knew that Yi Zhan had chased after Qin Wentian, and Qin Wentian had saved her and Lu Yu. From the bottom of her heart, she had a favorable impression of Qin Wentian. Lu Yan lightly nodded her head, as she smiled at Qin Wentian. Thank you for the matter back then. No need, just treat it as me returning the favor. Qin Wentian's countenance was calm. Everyone had their own ambitions, and Lu Yan had the right to choose. However, Lu Yan had chosen Yi Zhan, who wanted to kill him. This caused him to be in a difficult position. How should he treat Yi Zhan? Even now, Qin Wentian still believed that Lu Yan had saved him back then. Hee hee. Yi Zhan's smile was filled with coldness. He looked at Chu Ling and continued, Chu Ling, Qin Wentian is a descendant of the traitorous Qin clan. Not only that, he had killed Yi Mo and Yi Lang of the Yi clan. Don't tell me you don't know this. This bastard. Chu Ling cursed in her heart. I didn't know that he was Qin Wentian, he was merely my bodyguard. Bodyguard? So that's how it is. Yi Zhan's countenance was calm. He turned around and looked at Qin Wentian as he laughed, so it turns out that you're willing to be someone else's servant. You've really gained face for the Qin clan. For the sake of Sister Yao, I'll temporarily tolerate her. Qin Wentian thought. He didn't expect Chu Ling to have such a character. Yi Zhan guessed that the reason Qin Wentian came here today was because of Qin Yao. However, he couldn't help but coldly laugh in his heart. As a descendant of the Yi clan, he naturally knew some insider information about today's banquet. Now that Qin Wentian had delivered himself to his doorstep, how laughable. Holding onto Lu Yan's hand, Yi Zhan walked away with a faint smile on his face. In an instant, Chu Ling became the focal point of the crowd. Qin Wentian, you should go back. This place isn't suitable for you. Feeling the gazes of the crowd, Chu Ling involuntarily turned to Qin Wentian and said, I will explain this matter to my friend. I don't wish to help you anymore. Chu Ling's voice wasn't loud, but the crowd could still hear her clearly. Evidently, Chu Ling was entrusted by someone to bring Qin Wentian here. A student of the Emperor Star Academy doesn't even have the qualifications to enter this circle. This is the difference in status. Lu Yu was also paying attention to Qin Wentian, as he sighed in his heart. Ever since he stepped into the royal capital, he had already deeply felt that life here was different from before. Here, there were many nobles and aristocrats, and the weak were prey to the strong. The Yi clan is the true trump card. Lu Yu silently mused. After which, he whispered to Lu Yan, although this Qin Wentian is interested in you, you have to draw a clear line between yourself and him. I know what to do. Lu Yan froze for a moment before lightly nodding her head. As for Qin Wentian, when he heard Chu Ling's words, his expression couldn't help but stiffen. Staring at Chu Ling, he suddenly felt that it was ridiculous. Since he had already agreed to help, and they were already here, why did Chu Ling say that she wouldn't bring him in? What a joke. Farewell. Qin Wentian laughed. It wasn't that he didn't have a temper, but because he wanted to see Qin Yao, he endured it. Who would have thought that Chu Ling would say such a thing to him? What's with your attitude? Chu Ling coldly snorted. Back then, if you didn't agree to help others, it would have been fine. But since you've already agreed, why are you scolding me like this? Do you really treat me like a slave? Who do you think you are? Qin Wentian coldly glanced at Chu Ling before flicking his sleeves and leaving. His speed was extremely fast, and his movement technique was extremely exquisite. Since Chu Ling didn't want to help him, there was no way he could beg her. He could only think of another way himself. Michem. At this moment, Mu Rou noticed Qin Wentian's movement technique. Her beautiful eyes froze as her heart pounded. She was extremely familiar with this movement technique. Mu Rou had fought against Qin Wentian many times in the dark forest. She was extremely familiar with this movement technique. Now that she thought about it, Qin Wentian's stature was somewhat similar to Qin Wentian's. It's him. Mu Rou's heart trembled. Wait. Mu Rou spoke, causing Qin Wentian to halt his steps as he turned his head to look at her. Follow me in. Mu Rou smiled at Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to be puzzled. We are friends, aren't we? I'm bringing a friend to the banquet, there won't be any problems. Mu Rou smiled sweetly. Although Qin Wentian was puzzled, he understood that Mu Rou wanted to help him. Hence, he didn't argue and replied, many thanks. Mu Rou. Chu Ling unhappily stared at Mu Rou. Wasn't Qin Wentian going against her? Chu Ling, I won't interfere in what you do. Right now, I'm bringing him in not because of you, but because of myself. Mu Rou spoke to Chu Ling, hoping that Chu Ling would understand that Qin Wentian wasn't targeting her. Is that so? Why do I feel that you're doing this on purpose? Chu Ling was extremely unhappy. Mu Rou, I treated you as a friend. Who would have thought that you would do such a thing? You've really disappointed me. After speaking, Chu Ling turned and left. Chu Ling, Mu Rou still wanted to explain, but Chu Ling continued, there's no need to say anything more. In the future, let's go our separate ways. Just pretend that I don't have a friend like you. Mu Rou's countenance stiffened. She turned and saw Qin Wentian walking over. A smile appeared on her face, but this smile was filled with bitterness. Chu Ling is such a person, don't blame her. Mu Rou spoke to Qin Wentian. After which, she murmured, 2 days later, her anger towards me should dissipate. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. For someone who could go back on a promise to a friend, their character could be seen clearly. Mu Rou had overestimated Chu Ling, but from this, it could be seen that Mu Rou had a kind heart. Chu Ling was a total stranger to him, yet she directly brought him in as a friend. She wasn't afraid of offending anyone. Compared to Mu Rou, Chu Ling seemed much more hypocritical. At this moment, someone from the manor came to welcome them. After which, the guards allowed them to enter. Let's go. Mu Rou smiled at Qin Wentian, but she didn't expose Qin Wentian. In her heart, she was extremely astonished. The person who could contend against Yanaro was actually the new student of the Emperor's Star Academy, Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian followed behind Mu Rou. They were led to a lush green grassland, with rivers on both sides. On this grassland, a banquet had already been prepared. However, as the third prince had yet to arrive, no one took their seats. From afar, in a pavilion, a group of silhouettes walked out. The person in the lead was a young man dressed simply and cleanly. He had a well-proportioned physique, black hair draped over his shoulders, and a pair of eyes that were filled with vigor. He was actually a handsome man. This handsome young man had a smile in his eyes, yet it was as though there was a divine light in them. His aura was extraordinary. Beside him, a young man dressed in white stood. Qin Wentian was actually able to recognize him. This young man was none other than the demon-level genius of the Emperor's Star Academy, Luo Qinqiu. The two of them walked shoulder to shoulder, as though they were of equal status. After the two of them exited the pavilion, they halted their steps. The handsome young man smiled as he looked behind him, as though he was welcoming an esteemed guest. After which, a group of silhouettes walked out, and the person in the lead was none other than Qin Yao. His Highness, the third prince, has arrived. The third prince's demeanor is still as outstanding as ever. No wonder he's a heaven's chosen. Smiles could be seen on the faces of the crowd, as they couldn't help but to praise the young man. The third prince, Chu Tianjiao, was also known as heaven's chosen. He had the highest possibility of inheriting the throne of the Chu country, and was highly regarded by the emperor. Not only that, his talent was extremely outstanding, and he was ranked number 2 among the 10 prodigies. Chu Tianjiao, a heaven's chosen. Chapter 78. The first time Qin Wentian saw Chu Tianjiao, he already felt that this person was a dragon among men. Who would have thought that the third son of the emperor was actually such a young and handsome character? Everyone, please take your seats, there's no need to feel restrained. Chu Tianjiao slowly walked over, smiling at the crowd. First, he invited Qin Yao and the rest to take their seats, before he himself sat down, and the rest of the crowd followed suit. Today, the people I've invited are all outstanding youths of the same generation. This way, there will be more topics to talk about. Chu Tianjiao laughed heartily. Let me introduce everyone. This is Qin Yao from Snow Cloud Country, and to my left, is my good friend Luo Qinqiu. I'm sure many of you have heard of him before. Mu Ro's seat was some distance away from the host's seat, while Qin Wentian sat below her. His gaze was fixated on Qin Yao, and Qin Yao also noticed him. However, Qin Yao's eyes were filled with hidden bitterness, as though she was blaming him for his actions. Previously, Qin Yao intentionally avoided meeting with Qin Wentian because she didn't want Qin Wentian to be implicated in the matter of the Qin clan. Who would have thought that this fellow would actually come looking for her? Qin Wentian seemed to have understood Qin Yao's intentions, as he sighed in his heart, "Sister Yao didn't want to implicate me in this matter." This was also the intention of second and third uncle back then. I naturally understand this point, but seeing that she came to Chu, how can I sit back and do nothing? I have to get to the bottom of this matter. How can you not know the genius of the Emperor's Star Academy, Luo Qianqiu? A clear voice drifted over, as a few silhouettes walked over from afar. The person in the lead clasped his hands towards Chu Tianjiao, as he smiled. "Yanaro is late by a step, please forgive me, Your Highness." "Yanaro, quickly come and take a seat." Chu Tianjiao didn't have the slightest bit of the domineering air of someone with a high status. Instead, he appeared amiable and approachable, as he spoke to Yanaro. "You and Qianqiu are both geniuses of the Emperor's Star Academy. There are so many geniuses in the Emperor's Star Academy, but there's one who's currently in the limelight. He has young Lord Luo's blood ember fruits in his eyes, and is incomparably arrogant." Yanaro smiled, as he walked to the side of Qin Wentian. Turning his gaze onto Qin Wentian, he laughed. "Qin Wentian, am I right?" Luo Qianqiu's gaze also shifted in the direction of Qin Wentian, as though he didn't care. Luo Qianqiu also shifted his gaze towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian and him were people from two completely different worlds. He still remembered that if it wasn't for the Green Cloud Alliance's leader, Ling Hua, appearing previously, he would have already killed Qin Wentian. But now, the past was the past. Seeing this, how could Qin Wentian not be moved? However, when Qin Wentian saw this, he merely laughed it off. "Qin Wentian." Lu Yan abruptly spoke. Raising her cup, she faced Qin Wentian and said, "Thank you very much for the matter in the dark forest. In the future, if you ever need my help, there's no need to say anything more." Qin Wentian interrupted the other party's words. He similarly raised his cup and drained it in a single gulp. "Everyone has their own ambitions. I don't have the qualifications to criticize your life, but I also won't ask for your help. From now on, we are strangers." Lu Yan still wanted to speak, but Lu Yu spoke first. "That would be for the best." Qin Wentian swept a glance at Lu Yu, as a sharp glint of light flickered in his eyes. He already knew that Lu Yu was a despicable person, but he couldn't be bothered to be calculative. In the future, they wouldn't have any interactions. Standing up, Qin Wentian walked to the center of the crowd, looking at Chu Tianjiao. He was very clear that other than the Yi clan, there was also this heaven's chosen in front of him. "Your Highness, I'm here today to see my sister. Can you allow me to speak a few words with her?" Qin Wentian bluntly asked. Chu Tianjiao's countenance didn't change in the slightest. He smiled and nodded his head. "If she has no objections, I naturally won't interfere." "Many thanks, Your Highness." Qin Wentian spoke as he walked towards Qin Yao. After he was out of the crowd, he turned his head back and said to Qin Yao, "Follow me." Upon hearing Qin Wentian's stern voice, Qin Yao actually had a look of grievance on her face. She stood up and followed after Qin Wentian. This scene was truly laughable. Why did it feel as though Qin Wentian was treating her like an elder? Qin Wentian walked to a place far away, before turning back. Seeing Qin Yao walking over, he couldn't help but ask, "What's going on?" "You rascal, I'm your sister." Qin Yao glared at Qin Wentian, unconvinced. "You still know?" Qin Wentian took a step forward, his hands cupping Qin Yao's cheeks. His gaze was much gentler than before. "Sister, what's going on? Why did you become one of the candidates for the Crown Prince's wife? Was it of your own will, or was it forced by the crown prince? Wentian, you don't have to care about this matter. Just focus on cultivating in the Emperor's Star Academy. Don't worry about the matters of the outside world. Qin Yao's heart melted as she saw the gentleness in Qin Wentian's eyes. Her voice contained hints of pleading, as she didn't want Qin Wentian to be involved in the matters of the Qin clan. Back in Snowcloud, she had always been inquiring about news regarding Qin Wentian. She knew that Qin Wentian was highly regarded by the Emperor's Star Academy and had a bright future ahead of him. Qin Yao didn't want him to be implicated. How can I not care about your matters? If you are willing, then the Crown Prince of Snowcloud has to let me see if he's qualified. If not, as long as I, Qin Wentian, am still alive, I will not allow anyone to force you. Qin Wentian's gaze was filled with determination. This was his promise to Qin Yao. They had depended on each other for many years, and their relationship had long surpassed that of siblings. In fact, there were many times when he was more like an elder brother. How could he allow Qin Yao to suffer any grievances? Qin Yao stared at Qin Wentian as she spoke in a low voice. When I was cultivating in the Snowcloud Academy, I got to know the Crown Prince of Snowcloud. He treated me very well, and even sent people to protect my safety. He was also willing to help me save my grandfather and father. Hence, I promised him that if I could really save my grandfather and father, I would become his woman. Sister, why are you so silly? Qin Wentian sighed. It seemed like Qin Yao was purely sacrificing herself for the sake of her father and grandfather, hoping to borrow the strength of Snowcloud. Second uncle's side has already reached a stalemate. As long as Chu mobilizes their troops, they will be defeated sooner or later. I can't afford to wait. Qin Yao's heart was filled with an uneasy feeling. In that case, why did you come to Chu? Qin Wentian asked. I wish to meet with my grandfather and father first, and see if I can negotiate with them. However, the attitude of Chu is unclear, and this is the first time I've seen the third prince. Qin Yao replied. Miss Qin. At this moment, a few silhouettes walked over from afar. They were none other than Qin Yao's bodyguards. Their gazes were fixed on Qin Wentian, and their countenances were extremely sharp, causing Qin Wentian to furrow his brows. Wentian, let's return first. There's no need to care about this matter anymore. Qin Yao lowered her head as she spoke, causing Qin Wentian to feel a sense of heaviness in his heart. I'm afraid this matter isn't so simple. Qin Wentian silently mused. After which, the two of them returned to their seats, only to discover that several people were currently discussing them. However, Qin Wentian didn't mind. Just when he was about to leave, two silhouettes walked over from afar. In an instant, the gazes of the crowd all shifted in that direction. Because, there was a beautiful silhouette that was too dazzling. The instant she appeared, it was as though everything in the surroundings had lost their luster. Only she was the main character. Those scions from the aristocratic clans all forgot their elegance as their gazes were fixated on that silhouette. It was as though every step she took could affect the hearts of the people. Where is she going? The hearts of the crowd involuntarily pounded as they saw Mo Qingqing walking towards the direction of the crowd. How beautiful! Lu Yan noticed that Yi Zhan and Lu Yu were both in a daze, as a faint sense of disappointment appeared in her heart. Chapter 79. The person who had just arrived was none other than the number one beauty in Chu, Mo Qingqing. Mo Qingqing slowly walked forward, as the gazes of the crowd followed her footsteps. However, very quickly, their countenances froze. Mo Qingqing seemed to be moving in the direction of Mu Rou. Mu Rou and Mo Qingqing shouldn't have any relationship, right? The hearts of the crowd mused. Not long after, Mo Qingqing stood in front of Mu Rou. Staring at her back, the crowd had expressions of bewilderment on their faces. However, Qin Wentian discovered that Mo Qingqing's gaze was actually on him. Casting a glance to his left and right, Qin Wentian discovered that he was the only one beside him. Qin Wentian. Mo Qingqing called out in a low voice. As the sound of her voice faded, the pupils of the crowd all narrowed. Qin Wentian. Mo Qingqing was here to look for Qin Wentian. They couldn't help but suspect if they had heard wrongly. It was said that Qin Wentian came to attend this banquet as Chu Ling's servant. Earlier, they were still talking about him. What's the matter? Qin Wentian inclined his head, and the instant he saw that silhouette, his heart involuntarily palpitated. A countenance that could topple empires, an absolute beauty shyly standing there, her eyes like limpid autumn waters. This scene was simply too beautiful. He naturally recognized her. For a woman like Mo Qingqing, no matter who saw her, they would never be able to forget her. I have a matter to discuss with you. Can you come with me? Mo Qingqing softly spoke, causing the gazes of the crowd to freeze. They hadn't heard wrongly, Mo Qingqing actually invited Qin Wentian to be alone with her. In their memories, in the royal capital of Chu, there had never been a man who received such treatment. Sure. Qin Wentian directly agreed. He originally didn't want to stay here any longer, so he stood up and left the banquet. Mo Qingqing nodded her head lightly to Chu Tianjiao, and didn't even bother to glance at the others as she left together with Qin Wentian. Staring at the back of the two of them, the entire banquet hall was incomparably silent. Many people stared at Qin Wentian, their eyes gleaming with a cold light. Qin Wentian. Lu Yu's expression was ice-cold. Clearly, he was jealous. Beside him, Lu Yan's expression was exceptionally interesting. However, Mo Qingqing and Qin Wentian obviously didn't know what they were thinking. The two of them walked to a grassy area far away. Mo Qingqing slowly turned and looked at Qin Wentian. I'm sorry about that day. Mo Qingqing lowered her head as she apologetically replied. Looking at her expression, Qin Wentian found it extremely hard to blame her. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart, femme fatale. Luckily, his mental fortitude was extremely tough. If it was an ordinary youth facing such a situation, they would definitely find it hard to maintain their composure. We don't even know each other. Why are you apologizing to me? Although Qin Wentian's heart was in turmoil, he still remained calm and replied. So you're still blaming me? However, I didn't know that you were Qin Wentian that day. That's why I misunderstood when I saw you chasing after Orphan. Mo Qingqing's watery eyes stared at Qin Wentian with a hint of grievance in them. This kind of gaze was enough to melt the hearts of those who saw it. At this moment, Nolan, who was standing at the side, was completely dumbfounded. Heavens, when did the great beauty Mo Qingqing have such a feminine side? Nolan rubbed his eyes, thinking that his eyes were playing tricks on him. Forget it, it's not a big deal anyway. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled as he shook his head. He didn't even dare to look Mo Qingqing in the eye. He couldn't stand the look in her eyes. He was originally an open-minded person, and wouldn't haggle over minor matters. That day, he and Fan Lu were indeed too angry. But now that he thought about it, Mo Qingqing's misunderstanding back then was only normal. Not only that, when Orkan threatened to kill them, Mo Qingqing had also told them to leave. However, the Mo Qingqing now, compared to the Mo Qingqing from that day, was too far apart. She gave off a surreal feeling. Qin Wentian didn't believe that Mo Qingqing had fallen in love with him at first sight, nor did he know why. That's good. Mo Qingqing gently smiled. Are you also here to participate in the banquet hosted by the third prince? Qin Wentian suddenly asked. He did invite me, but I don't like too many people. Mo Qingqing smiled. No matter where she went, there would always be too many eyes staring at her. And these people were indeed very bored. I want to ask you something. What sort of character is the Crown Prince of Snowcloud? Qin Wentian suddenly thought of something as he asked. Mo Qingqing's status was definitely extraordinary, maybe she would know something about him. The number of princes in the Snow Cloud country is even more numerous compared to the Chu country. The Snow Cloud country's situation is stable, and the authority of the emperor is even stronger than the Chu country. Not only that, the emperor of Snow Cloud is in the prime of his life, but under such circumstances, the Snow Cloud country has already decided on the position of crown prince. From this, one can see how outstanding the crown prince of Snow Cloud is, far surpassing the other princes. He's the same as Chu Tianjiao, extremely powerful. Mo Qingqing slowly spoke, her words causing Qin Wentian's countenance to stiffen. The more powerful a character was, the harder it was to guess their intentions. Would such a character really mobilize so many people for the sake of Qin Yao, disregarding their relationship with Chu and helping Qin Yao to save her? This caused him to feel even more uneasy. Oh yeah, there's one more thing I want to tell you. Mo Qingqing stared at Qin Wentian, her countenance solemn. What's the matter? Qin Wentian asked. I've heard some rumors that the crown prince of Snow Cloud has a very high possibility of marrying a princess of Chu. Mo Qingqing spoke in a low voice, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble violently, as his countenance instantly turned incredibly unsightly to behold. Is this news reliable? Emichum, there shouldn't be any mistakes. Mo Qingqing nodded her head in reply. Thank you. Qin Wentian's heart was suddenly filled with an intense worry. Since the crown prince of Snow Cloud had a marriage alliance with a princess of Chu, why would he go to such lengths to offend the Chu country for the sake of Qin Yao? Not only that, the news of Qin Yao coming to Chu, how big of a commotion would there be in the Snow Cloud country? Maybe, not many people knew about this. Qin Yao was only a candidate for the crown prince's wife in name. She didn't have any major powers supporting her in Snow Cloud country, and not many people even knew of her existence. In other words, there was a very high possibility that Qin Yao was being used by someone else. Mo Qingqing sighed in her heart as she saw the expression on Qin Wentian's face. She also knew that the reason why Qin Yao was sent to Chu wasn't to save Qin Wu and Qin Chuan. Initially, she didn't want to tell Qin Wentian about this, because she felt that the current Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to change anything. It would be better for him to stay in the Emperor's Star Academy and cultivate peacefully. However, this time around, she met Qin Wentian here, and coincidentally, Qin Wentian also had his own suspicions. Mo Qingqing nodded her head, but it was enough for Qin Wentian to understand. Oi, are you guys treating me like air? When are you guys going to finish chatting? Nolan, who was at the side, had her hands on her hips. Finally, she couldn't bear it any longer as she glared at Qin Wentian. She didn't know what kind of luck this fellow had, to be able to interact with Mo Qingqing alone. Emichum, I'll take my leave first. Qin Wentian nodded his head, causing Nolan's beautiful eyes to freeze as she blinked. To think that it was actually Qin Wentian who took the initiative to say that he wanted to leave. This was truly causing her to be speechless. You better return to the Emperor's Star Academy first. Mo Qingqing spoke to Qin Wentian. She was worried that he would be dragged into this mess. He couldn't care less about Qin Yao's matters. Qin Wentian didn't say anything, he merely nodded his head to Mo Qingqing before departing. His brows were tightly furrowed, evidently worried for Qin Yao. After the conversation with Mo Qingqing, his heart grew heavy. Qin Yao was one of the most important people in his life, how could he not be worried? There's one more thing. Mo Qingqing, who was standing behind him, spoke again. Qin Wentian turned his head, only to hear Mo Qingqing saying, that Lu Yan, you don't owe her anything. Michem. Qin Wentian felt somewhat puzzled, but because he was still worried, he casually nodded his head and didn't ask any more questions. Is this fellow an idiot? Nolan walked to the side of Mo Qingqing, staring at the back view of Qin Wentian in a daze. There were very few people who could remain so calm in front of Mo Qingqing. Why didn't you speak more clearly? He didn't even know what you meant. You should have told him that you carried him on your back that day. Nolan smiled mischievously, causing Imo Qingcheng to roll her eyes. Qin Wentian strolled about the hunting grounds, his heart heavy. The news of the marriage between the Crown Prince of Snowcloud and the Princess of Chu was still lingering in his mind. I'm afraid that I can only bring Sister Yao away now. Qin Wentian silently mused. No wonder earlier when he was chatting with Qin Yao, there were people who came to investigate. Maybe it wasn't because they wanted to protect him, but rather, it was a form of surveillance. At this moment, the earth trembled. Qin Wentian abruptly stood up, only to see that in the distance, a group of warhorses were galloping madly, sweeping through the dark forest. These were none other than the silhouettes from the banquet, and it seemed as though they were on their way to hunt. Qin Wentian had been strolling about the dark forest for quite some time. Most probably, the banquet had already ended, and the descendants of the aristocratic clans had already entered the dark forest to hunt. Reaching into his robes, Qin Wentian retrieved the Kirin mask and wore it on his face. After which, his silhouette dashed in the direction of the sound of hooves, akin to a gust of wind. They've dispersed. As Qin Wentian ran, he discovered that the group of people had already dispersed into the depths of the dark forest. From time to time, there would be some low-level demonic beasts roaming about, but they were all easily killed. Sister Yao's group is over there. Qin Wentian's gaze was fixed on Qin Yao's group, and he followed closely behind them. However, he had always been moving in the shadows. The terrain of the dark forest was the best cover for him. Yanaro? At this moment, Qin Wentian discovered that Yanaro wasn't riding his horse. Instead, he was following closely behind Qin Yao's group. This caused Qin Wentian's countenance to stiffen. What did Yanaro mean by this? Qin Wentian's senses had always been sharp. He discovered Yanaro's presence, but Yanaro didn't seem to notice him. He was like a hunter, following closely behind Qin Yao's group. There are people in the surroundings as well. Qin Wentian suddenly felt that he was being stared at. From all directions, silhouettes could be seen moving in his direction, surrounding him. What do they mean by this? If they wanted to act against Sister Yao, why would they use such a method instead of directly attacking her? Qin Wentian knew that if the people from Snowcloud had colluded with the Chu country, they would have too many methods to deal with Qin Yao. Why would they need to go through so much trouble? At this moment, Qin Wentian's mind was completely tensed up. He shifted his body to the side, only to discover that there were two people following him. Evidently, he had been discovered. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.